I woke up to some great news this morning. I see that the Big 12 Conference decided that glass LED court they've been playing on for the men's and the women's tournament is absolute hot garbage. Nobody likes it, and it's time to move on from it. I was at the Big 12 tournament last night. I went during the day and stayed through. I didn't quite get to halftime of the KU game because I knew I had to get some sleep, and these games just run too late. But I wake up this morning at about 4, and I see that Big 12 Commissioner Brett Yormark made the announcement that the Big 12 was going to bail on the glass LED court they've been playing on for the last couple of weeks, and they're going to go back to the old hardwood tonight for the semifinals. Of course, Kansas going to play Houston later today, and then you also will have Iowa State taking on Arizona. So KU coming back last night, winning that game over TCU. Congratulations to them. And, the glass court was cool. I was there. I was looking at it. It's kind of neat. You can change logos and advertisers. And, when someone dunks, they have a glass shattering inside the three-point line. It's fine. But when players are slipping and you're risking injury, what's the point of any of it, Mark?
One thing I was noticing as I was watching the games, it seems like the players' faces light up from the court.
Yes.
A little strange.
Yeah, well, there was one player, a Houston guard, Kingston Flemings, who said after his game, I was there, I was in his press conference, and he goes, yeah, they have these shiny LED lights that blast when I'm trying to shoot a free throw. That's kind of annoying. It's yeah, no kidding. You got guys blinded while they're shooting free throws. But I give the Big 12 credit because, seriously, they said, you know what? We tried this. We went for something innovative. And to their credit, they backed off. All right? I mean, it's popular right now to never admit you're wrong on anything. And the Big 12 is we tried this. We want to be innovative, but people don't really like it, so we're going to bail on it. But now I feel bad for the Saps at T-Mobile this morning that are probably up at 6 a.m. changing out the glass floor and putting back the old hardwood. So that is probably happening right now at T-Mobile Center. So last night, as I'm sitting there at the Big 12 tournament, I'm along Media Row, and I'm starting to think about the show today, and I pull up the Kansas City Star. And I see the story that dropped yesterday in the Kansas City Star about funding for the Johnson County Public Schools, because we had 3 major area schools, Olathe, Blue Valley, and Shawnee Mission, all put out letters to their parents over the last couple of days saying, we need the state legislature in Topeka to fully fund the kids and fully fund special education, and they must give us more money. It was the 3 of them came together, put out their statements, and are trying to pressure Topeka. This despite the fact that special education funding is up $250 million and 25% in the state of Kansas over the last 4 fiscal years. So this headline from the Kansas City Star, Blue Valley families fear music class cuts. District says it needs more state money. Isn't that rich? Kansas City Star running propaganda for the Blue Valley School District. The Blue Valley School District that is absolutely loaded when it comes to funds, sitting on hundreds of millions of dollars in reserves. Blue Valley sits on $300 million in reserves. And now what they're saying is that if they don't get, more money from the state of Kansas, the music class is getting cut. My goodness, guys. Are you kidding me?
Making the petroleum companies blush.
This is ridiculous. It's you tell your spouse, hey, we got to rein in the spending on our vehicles that we have every month because, our budget's kind of tight. And, we're driving these souped up, big fancy Suburbans and pickups, and we just got to dial it back a little bit. And you're like, nope, not dialing it back there. You know what I'm going to do? I guess we just can't eat this month. No, you've got to do the basics, okay? These school districts need to get back to doing the basics. Their ACT scores are down about 10% over the last decade in Blue Valley. They're spending more money than ever. And now, as the Kansas City Star writes here, the Blue Valley School District is facing a $10 million funding gap for next year. in large part because of a decline in local enrollment. On top of that, the district needs to redirect $18 million from its general fund to help pay for its special education programs. Making up those costs is causing district families to fear potential cuts to beloved programs right away. If they don't get what they want from the state of Kansas, they're going to start cutting music? Put this together. Use a little bit of common sense. Of all the money, all the reserves that these school districts have, the Kansas City Star running cover for the school district being like, well, if Topeka doesn't give them every single dollar that they demand, I guess music class is over. I guess little Sally will never learn how to play the clarinet, and little Bob will never learn how to play the tuba. What a shame. What an absolute shame. This is making even some of the people in the public education system blush reading this. This is just pure propaganda, is what this is. So I'm reading through the story, and I'm thinking to myself, you can't be serious with this. But yes, you can be. Yes, it is. Despite the fact that when you actually start crunching the numbers, it's not about special education funding. First off, we all want special education children and special needs children to have the resources available to them in our schools. Let's get that out of the way. Okay? We're all on the same page. Stop using them as pawns in your game, because that's what's really going on here. They are using special education as a pawn in their game to try to extract more money from the taxpayer at the state level. That's it. That's what's going on. In terms of Blue Valley, they've got a budget of about $400 million. That's what they have. Okay? And when you look at how they suddenly sit there and say, well, we're short, we don't have enough money, $300 million in reserves. $20 million in a contingency fund. This was actually written about in the Kansas City Star by our good friend Patrick Toohey at the Show Me Institute back in September of last year. He highlighted all of these numbers. This despite the fact that the Blue Valley School District average SAT score was 25.9 back in 2016. In 2024, it fell to 22.8. It is down about 10% over the last decade, give or take. So I'm looking at these numbers and saying to myself, and you want to use special education as your tool to try to beat up the state legislature for more money? When, by the way, they've increased their funding 25%, $250 million, according to state lawmakers who gave me those numbers yesterday over the last 10 years. Kansas City Star going to highlight that? Are they going to highlight anything in this piece when it comes to actual money that gets spent? All they're doing is saying, well, this year the state funding leaves an $180 million shortfall in special education statewide. According to who? And how is every dollar being spent right now? That's what we need to know. What has the increase in spending been in Blue Valley over the last 10 years? If they actually were doing big J, capital J journalism, that's the stuff you'd be highlighting. You'd at least tell a full story here. But they're not interested in doing that. They're masking these opinion pieces as news items in the newspaper, and they're not news items. It's basically a press release on behalf of the school, and little Johnny is not going to get to play his saxophone if the big bad Republicans in Topeka don't shell out tens of millions of dollars more to cover the supposed air quotes shortfall. I'm done with that. People can see right through this stuff. 913-408-7957. And we'll talk to Renee Erickson. She is a state senator in Kansas coming up at 7:30 this morning. She oversees the education spending at the statewide level. So I'm going to cut through all this nonsense with her. I'm going to get the information. I want to know exactly what's going on when it comes to how much money's being spent, although I have those numbers, obviously. We've shared them, but we'll get into the nitty-gritty. And I think it'll be informative, and it's the kind of interview that if you are a Kansas resident or a Missouri resident for that matter, you'll learn something from coming up here in just over an hour on KCMO. 913-4087-957 is how you join us on KCMO. In the meantime, on the Missouri side, some big news yesterday, of course, that will change what the next few months look like around the region. I'll explain what it means and where it goes from here next on KCMO Talk Radio.
You're listening to Mundo in the Morning on 95.7 FM KCMO.
Hey, we got a busy News Friday here. Can't wait. Hope you'll be able to hang with us for the next few hours on 95.7 FM. You can stream us if you are getting to the office at kcmotalkradio.com or right on our KCMO Talk Radio app. So, happy Friday. We've made it to the end of the week. And yesterday in Missouri, a judge ruled that the redistricting in Missouri can stay in place, rejecting lawsuits that sought to throw it out before the upcoming midterms here in November. So Missouri lawmakers redrew the congressional map late last year. I'm going to kind of step back and break it down simply because I know for some of you, you're going to know exactly what I'm talking about. But if you're new or maybe kind of a casual listener or follower of this stuff, here's basically how this works. And by the way, the judge did the right thing. Missouri has 8 congressional seats. Of the 435 members in the House of Representatives, you've got 8 from the state of Missouri. It's all based on population and everything else, right? So these 8 congressional seats were redrawn by the legislature to give the Republicans an extra seat in the House of Representatives, similar to what happened in Texas, and then blue states are reacting in California and Virginia and elsewhere. But this was a way for Missouri to go from a 6 Republican, 2 Democrat breakdown in the House of Representatives to a 7 Republican, 1 Democrat breakdown in the House of Representatives. Is it gerrymandering? Absolutely. Is it legal? Yes. And that's part of what a judge ruled yesterday. And this will impact us here in Kansas City. Emanuel Cleaver goes from a solid blue district to a district that now is a Republican district that goes out to mid-Missouri. So under the current map, Emanuel Cleaver basically represents Jackson County and a sliver of those of you just into Clay County over the river. So this was all done. They usually do this stuff after the census every 10 years. But they did this mid-redistrict, or I guess mid-census redistrict, and they basically said to Emanuel Cleaver, okay, you now represent the northern half of Jackson County all the way out to past Columbia and down south to Lake of the Ozarks from there. I mean, it's now a much more mid-Missouri district than it ever was. And then those of you in Clay County, you can rejoice because if you were in Emanuel Cleaver's district the last couple of years, you're now back in Sam Graves' district. So we're doing some happy dances up in Clay County this morning. All right? That's right.
You mustard moo.
Bingo. So everyone in Clay County is now represented by Sam Graves and no longer being a part of the Emanuel Cleaver district. Thank goodness for that.
Amen. And a woman.
Hey, man, and a woman, baby. That's what they're singing this morning up there in Clay County. Congratulations. That's great news.
I looked at that district, and I hear the complaints, and I thought, well, have you looked at an Illinois map?
Yeah.
Have you looked at, let's see, another one I looked at maybe was New York. I'm like, wait, you were twisting yourself. They have pretzel-shaped districts,
yes.
literally, right?
They're like,
so the argument that it's not fair for Cleaver and stuff can be applied just as equally the other way when they do it in the blue states.
Bingo. And that's why I said I'm not going to sugarcoat it. They absolutely gerrymandered the map, okay?
Yep.
I mean, they did. But this didn't start with red states. In fact, when you look at how the states are made up, typically you have much more of this in blue states. That's just a fact. But I won't deny that, yes, the Missouri GOP did gerrymander their map to create this 7-1 Republican to Democratic map. So basically, you'll have one Democrat district left in the state of Missouri, and that's going to be on the St. Louis side of the state. So now the 5th district is going to have guys like, you'll have Sean Smith running in that district now to try to win it over. You'll have Rick Bratton, I believe, who's a state senator, now running in that district as well. There's a couple other folks who I'm sure have gotten in or will be jumping into the race. Those two just come to mind right now. But there will be multiple Republicans who will try to win this seat in the House of Representatives. And now the 4th district, which is Mark Alford, who's going to be on the show coming up at 8:20, his district now includes the southern half of Jackson County, parts of Kansas City as a result, and goes south basically towards almost Springfield, goes east from there, and then gets cut off in South Mid-Missouri. So his district shifts a little bit as well. It's not as large as of a geographical space because he's picked up a lot of population in the southern half of Jackson County. So now Mark Alford, who spent obviously decades on Kansas City TV, now represents a large portion of Kansas City, Missouri.
And one member of this show.
Yes.
Yeah, I get moved into his district now, I believe.
Congratulations. Yep. You are out of Cleaver's district, John, and you are in to Mark Alford's district. So now when he calls the show for his interviews, you can give him a hard time as a constituent behind the scenes before he gets on the air. You're going to have him all frazzled.
I know where your office is, buddy.
Exactly. John's going to be grilling Alford before he even gets on the show. And now he's going to use the whole, I'm a constituent, sir. You listen to me. You listen to... And then John was celebrating yesterday with a Cuban over there at in Lee Summit.
Conrad's,
yeah. Did you guys have a good time yesterday?
Oh, absolutely.
That's awesome.
I walked out with a pizza and half of a Cuban. So
oh, jeez.
Had to bring something home for the missus that time.
You couldn't go 2 straight days and not bring something home for the wife.
Yeah.
You did the right thing.
I knew she didn't like spicy wings, but there was no way I wasn't getting those day one. So tough stuff there.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Well, congratulations, John. You are now in Mark Alford's district. Now, the other thing happening in Missouri yesterday, it was a busy day. The House approved the first phase of a plan to eliminate the state's income tax. It's not done, but it's, the first of obviously many things that have to happen in Missouri to get rid of the state's income tax by expanding sales taxes. So this has been a key priority for Mike Kehoe, obviously. They've been talking about this in Missouri for the last several months. And you got to figure out how to make up 65% of the state's general revenue that currently comes through the income tax. So Missouri employs right now a base state sales tax of 4.225% on most retail goods. They're going to have to obviously increase that dramatically to make up for not having an income tax. And Republicans believe that they can do it. And obviously, they think that they would benefit in the long term by growing the business sector by becoming a no-income tax state, a la Tennessee, Florida, Wyoming, used to be Washington State, no more, Texas, and a handful of others. So this passed the House yesterday, 98-54. And if this goes and passes the Senate, it would then go before the voters in November or an earlier election that would be called by Mike Kehoe. They would ask you, the voters in Missouri, to give lawmakers the ability to increase sales taxes, which would trigger gradual reductions in the state income tax. So they wouldn't just go to zero right away. They would try to gradually phase this thing out over several years by lowering your income tax rate and increasing the sales tax rate. And that would be the responsible way to do it, which is not what happened in Kansas with Sam Brown going back over 10 years ago now. So Jon Patterson, who is the Speaker of the House in Missouri, is going to join me at 7 o'clock here on KCMO, react to the map and also the plans for phasing out the income tax in Missouri. Big stuff yesterday. Meantime, can we get the government back open? Not yet. Details next.
from Leawood to Liberty. You're listening to Mundo in the Morning on 95.7 FM, KCMO Talk Radio.
Well, they tried yesterday. Good morning, 6:33. Happy Friday. Senate Democrats on Thursday defeated a motion to proceed to a House-passed bill to reopen the Department of Homeland Security and end the 27-day shutdown that has hampered the TSA and other critical agencies. It failed yesterday 51-46. John Fetterman was the only Democrat to vote with Republicans to advance the funding bill, which needs 60 votes to advance. It marked the fourth time since February 12th that Democrats have voted to block Homeland Security funding legislation. This is so frustrating. We're literally now a wartime nation because of Operation Epic Fury, okay? And we do not have TSA agents who are in charge of guarding the airports, which, you don't have to be that old to remember when airports were used as ways to kill thousands of American citizens. We now have people who are in charge of security at our airports who have missed one pay period. And, well, I guess the second one would probably be today, depending on how they, get paid at TSA. But now they're looking at a second pay period that they are not getting paid at TSA. And while we all like to kind of, we've all had a bad experience at TSA. Hey, buddy, watch it there. Don't rub my crotch too hard as you're shaking me down for a bomb. It's like, come on. We all can make fun of TSA, but in the end, let's be honest. They're doing the work that we ask them to do. They're keeping our skies safe. They're in charge of keeping our nation safe. And when you get pulled in, walking through security as the random guy or gal who's got to get, the pat down, it's not the guy's fault behind the desk at TSA. He's just doing his job. He's implementing the system that Department of Homeland Security has had in place for years. You can't blame that guy or gal. I don't, even though it is frustrating when you get pulled off to the side and, all right, sir, got to check your bag. Okay, buddy, go ahead. It is what it is. But for them to now miss a second pay period, when, by the way, spring break is coming up, right? Next week in Kansas City is spring break for most of the metro and most of the region. These airports are potentially going to be an absolute nightmare. And I wouldn't blame these TSA agents from going on strike because I don't know what else you do right now to get the attention of these people in D.C. who are just playing politics. That's all they're doing. They're playing politics. So what's going on here is, John Thune and the Republicans, obviously, they just want to reopen Homeland Security and just try to get on to the business as usual. Chuck Schumer and the Democrats have countered with a proposal to fund just TSA to ease congestion at the airports. And they want to go through and have more changes for ICE and Border Patrol and things like that. So Schumer's trying to say, well, we'll open TSA, but then we still want to have all these debates on ICE. Well, just have the debates at the appropriate time. That's all. But would you open up TSA and stop using TSA paychecks for people who are not making a ton of money as an opportunity for you to try to score political points? That's it. That's all you have to do. But right now, you've got a situation where these people can't get paid. And I don't know how this ends. I mean, until the political gamesmanship comes to an end, I don't know how any of this ends. But it's not the right time in this country for us to be doing this. At some point, you have to set the politics aside, okay? There will be plenty of time to debate ICE and what they, wear and what they don't wear and how you fund them and all those things. Those days are coming. But my goodness, you got these poor folks working up there at Kansas City International right now. And while most people in the country are getting paid today, they're going out without another paycheck. They got mortgages, they got bills, they got to pay for groceries. And yes, they'll get their back pay, but that's not the point. A lot of people are living paycheck to paycheck. A lot of people need those paychecks to come through, to pay the mortgage, pay the bills, buy the groceries. And these people are being used as political pawns by the most powerful people in the country. And it's so frustrating because regardless of your feelings on ICE or immigration policy, just have those debates. We have elections for that too coming up in 6 months. All right, it's shaping up to be a good one for the Democrats. Just take your wins, and trust me, they'll have some wins. They'll be coming, and then make the changes that you want to make. But please stop using these poor people as tools in your game and then also telling people that you care about the little guy. The TSA agent's the little guy. And he's caught in the middle of your dog and pony show right now. So speaking of things also happening, we had two tragedies yesterday. There was a terrorist attack at Old Dominion University in Virginia. And the person who ended up getting killed, Lieutenant Colonel Brandon Shaw, he was a professor of military science and the leader of the university's ROTC program. He was a veteran of Operation Iraqi Freedom, Operation Enduring Freedom, and Atlantic Resolve. His awards include 2 Bronze Stars, Senior Army Aviator Badge, Combat Action Badge, Parachutist Badge, Air Assault Badge. I mean, he is a decorated veteran, and he lost his life doing multiple tours fighting Islamic terrorism for his country, and he survived. Only to come home and be murdered by an Islamic terrorist who was let into our country. So I guess some politicians could virtue signal about diversity being our strength. That's it. That's what happened here. I mean, this guy who ended up shooting up Old Dominion was ID'd as Mohammed Jallo, a former Army National Guardsman who was convicted back in 2016 for attempting to provide material support to ISIS. He was released from federal prison in 2024 under then President Biden. I don't know about you, but I think if you're convicted of providing support to terrorists, you should probably be denaturalized and deported after you leave prison. Is that a crazy thought? Like, okay, you got naturalized, and then you got convicted for attempting to give material to ISIS as a National Guardsman. So was this part of the plan? Were you always kind of, wanting to be a part of the enemy, and you were able to get your way into the National Guard and then provide support and material information to ISIS? I mean, at that point, how do you remain a naturalized citizen? How does that work? Like, how is that not just grounds for immediate deportation? Why would you ever want to keep that person in the country? Like that is such an uncontroversial take when you think about it at its very core. And that's what happened yesterday at Old Dominion. And then you also had a shooting yesterday, or not a shooting, but you had an attack at a Michigan synagogue that happened as well. And, that situation in and of itself is a similar deal. Someone was targeting Jews from Lebanon. And it was confirmed yesterday that the attempted mass shooter at a synagogue in Dearborn, Michigan, was a migrant from Lebanon. And it came hours after it was confirmed the shooter at Old Dominion in Virginia was also a Muslim. Does that mean that every Muslim is going to attack Americans? No, it doesn't mean that. But let's not also sugarcoat what happened here yesterday in this country. Let's not do that either, okay? Let's just at least present the facts, and those are the facts. Let's go to John. He's on KCMO. Hey, John, good morning.
Hey, good morning. On the shutdown you were talking about earlier, why does it seem like the Republicans are really great at snatching defeat out of the jaws of victory when I know they don't have the mainstream media, but they have other ways to reach people and get in touch. I mean, like on my Facebook page, I see ads for AOC on my Facebook page. Why don't the Republicans reach out like that? I mean, I'm sitting there, I laugh at it. I'm like, ha ha, whatever. Jasmine Crockett. I mean, it comes on my Facebook. So she's actually reaching out. Those Democrats are reaching out to me as a Republican and advertising to me on Facebook. Why can't the Republicans do something like that? There are other ways to reach the voters besides the mainstream media and stop just destroying themselves as Republicans and remaining a second place party for as far as I can remember, except for like in the 90s when they actually balanced the budget. But anyhow, they give all the credit to Clinton. But.
It's a good point. I mean, listen, it may just be about money right now too, right? Like, you have probably a lot of money pouring into the Democratic Party today during a midterm year when they don't have a lot of power, John. So that's probably part of it. But, the reality is you got to keep up. And if you're Mark Alford, if you're anybody on the Republican side in Kansas or Missouri, I would be targeting independent voters and even Democratic voters. I mean, heck, if John's getting ads for AOC and Jasmine Crockett, clearly he's being targeted, right, by these ads on social media, even though he's not considered one of their voters at all. But it gets the message out there. And Republicans just going on Fox News, that accomplishes nothing. That's why I respect Mark Alford when he goes on CNN. I mean, that's where you have to go. I respect Quentin Lucas when he comes on here. You got to, whether you agree or disagree, you got to make the pitch to the people that disagree with you or are more likely to disagree with you. That's how you win. You don't win screaming into your own echo chamber. That really accomplishes nothing outside of making you feel good about yourself. And then your staff, pats you on the back and tells you what a great job you did. You got to have the hard conversations. I respect anybody on either side of the political aisle that is willing to go into places and have conversations with people that are more likely to disagree with them. So that's exactly what you're getting at there, John. Got to change hearts and minds, or at least try to, regardless of which side you're on. Our top 6 stories in the 6 o'clock hour coming up next on KCMO.
From Gladstone to Gardner, you're listening to Mundo in the Morning on 95.7 FM, KCMO Talk Radio.
6:51, good to be with you on a Friday morning on KCMO.
It's time for the 6 at 6 on KCMO Talk Radio. Number 1.
4 U.S. service members killed in refueling an aircraft which crashed in Iraq. This breaking news in the last couple of hours. 4 U.S. service members killed when a KC-135 refueling aircraft crashed in western Iraq yesterday afternoon after a midair incident with a second aircraft, according to Pentagon officials. This happened yesterday, but the news broke overnight in western Iraq at about 2 p.m. Eastern Time. 4 of the 6 crew members aboard the aircraft have been confirmed dead as rescue efforts continue. The other aircraft involved in the incident landed safely. Officials said the loss of the aircraft was not the result of hostile fire or friendly fire. The identities of the service members are being withheld pending notification of next of kin and will be released 24 hours after those notifications are complete. The circumstances surrounding the incident remain under investigation. But that happened yesterday. That would take the death toll for the United States from Operation Epic Fury up to 11. The number was 7 before 4 service members died yesterday in an announcement that came down from Central Command early this morning.
Number 2.
And next up on our 6 at 6, a Missouri judge ruling that the state's 2025 congressional redistricting plan can stay in place, rejecting lawsuits that sought to throw it out before the midterms coming up in November. That means that if you are in Clay County, you are back in Sam Graves' district and you are out of Emmanuel Cleaver's district.
A man and a woman.
That's right. Congratulations. So it also means that if you are in the southern half of Jackson County, you are likely now in Mark Alford's district and no longer in Emmanuel Cleaver's district. One more time.
A man and a woman.
Woo! That's right. Congratulations. Amen to that, baby. So Cleaver's district now extends out to basically Columbia and mid-Missouri. So we'll see how this plays out. But it's expected that Emmanuel Cleaver, if he runs for re-election, is likely to lose to whoever the Republicans pick in their primary race coming up in August. And that includes people like Sean Smith of the Jackson County Legislature. That includes people like Rick Bratton, who is right now in the state Senate in Missouri. So there will be, I'm sure, more people to announce they are running for that seat in the days and weeks to come, although the filing deadline is at the end of the month. Maybe Quentin Lucas tries to give it a go. I don't know. He'd have to primary Cleaver, which he actually says he was not going to do. He said that on the show 2 weeks ago, that he will not primary Emmanuel Cleaver. So scratch that idea. But Quentin Lucas has something up his sleeve. We'll just have to see exactly what that is. All right, let's keep it rolling here.
Number 3.
Also in Missouri, the House clearing a key hurdle yesterday to try to eliminate the state income tax in Missouri and try to change the state's revenue to exclusively sales taxes. So this passed the House 98-54 yesterday down in Jeff City. It now goes to the Senate. If it's approved by both chambers, it would go before the voters in November or at an earlier election called by Governor Mike Kehoe. So you would have to vote on the legislation to remove the income tax or phase out the income tax in Missouri and then slowly move to a sales tax operation in the state of Missouri. So that's something to watch as we go through the following weeks in the state legislature. Jon Patterson, Missouri Speaker of the House, will be here in less than 10 minutes on that big news yesterday.
Number 4.
Well, there were 2 terrorist attacks yesterday in this country. One against a synagogue in Michigan. Sources at Fox 2 in Detroit, close to the investigation, reported first yesterday the suspect is from Lebanon and that the suspect's family was killed in an airstrike over the weekend in Operation Epic Fury. You had multiple people who were targeted yesterday at this synagogue. The FBI took over the investigation. It was in West Bloomfield, Michigan, and where this took place. And the sheriff obviously applauded the work of law enforcement there in the area after the synagogue was attacked after a truck drove through the front entrance of Temple Israel. One individual was confirmed dead inside the vehicle. There were no children or staff injured during the attack. One security guard was hospitalized after being struck by the car. And then you had the loss of life at Old Dominion University, where Lieutenant Colonel Brandon Shaw, who was a professor of military science and the leader of the university's ROTC program, also a veteran of Operation Freedom, who was killed yesterday. And the shooter was ID'd as Mohammed Jallo, a former Army National Guardsman who was convicted in 2016 for attempting to provide material support to ISIS. He was a naturalized citizen released from federal prison last year under President Biden and was somehow allowed to just stay in the country. If you get naturalized and then you end up providing support to ISIS, I'm pretty sure we should kick you out.
Number 5.
The Big 12 announcing late last night they are bailing on the glass LED floor they use for the women's and men's tournament. They will go back to the hardwood tonight when Arizona takes on Iowa State in the Big 12 semifinals, and then it's KU playing Houston.
Number 6.
Last up in the 6 at 6, quarterfinals of the World Baseball Classic, 7 o'clock tonight in Houston. Team USA will take on Team Canada. It's Canada. Let's go. Big game tonight.
We got this.
We got this. There's your 6 at 6. Missouri Speaker of the House, Jon Patterson, on eliminating the income tax and more next. Missouri Speaker of the House Jon Patterson joins us right here on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. We're streaming on the KCMO Talk Radio app as always on a Friday morning. Yesterday, the Missouri House clearing a key hurdle to try to phase out the state income tax. So the Speaker of the House out of Lee's Summit, Jon Patterson joins us on KCMO. All right, Mr. Speaker, good morning. Great to have you here. Where are we at in the actual process of having the governor sign a bill that does phase out the income tax in Missouri?
Hey, Pete, great to be with you. And we're about, I would say, a quarter of the way there. And on this piece of legislation, the governor actually doesn't sign off on it. It's the people. So it will go to a vote of the people after it's passed. But it still has to pass the Senate and still got a long way to go. But I think it's something that it's really worth doing, and we're going to pursue it, and I hope it gets done. Okay,
so this would be done and handled, and it would give the people of Missouri the ability to vote on basically phasing out the income tax. How would it work? Would it be triggered by certain revenues getting hit, and then the income tax would go down while the sales tax would go up over however many years it would take?
That is exactly the way it would go. It's phased out over a number of years, and so just at a baseline level, we would lower the income tax rate by 1/100th of a percent if our revenues exceed a certain level, about for each $20 million increment. And then it would give us the authority to look at our sales tax base and see, are there ways that we can modernize it? And if there's more revenue there, that the government doesn't get to keep that revenue, that we give it back to the people at the state level in the form of an income tax cut and eventual elimination. And then at the local level, locals collect sales taxes too. We wouldn't want them to have a windfall. They would get to keep the money that they're already generating, but with the extra money, lower people's property taxes, and that's in the legislation as well. So it's a 2-for-1 deal. And when people talk about it, we talk about the income tax, but I think the property tax piece is equally as important.
So what do you think if Missouri gets to 0% income tax? Right now, the state sales tax is about 4.25%. What do you think the state sales tax would be at its peak to really get to 0% on the income tax?
Well, that all depends on what we decide to sales tax. You could have it very low if you're willing to have a broad sales tax base. Now, if you're going to carve out certain groups and things, it would have to be higher. But I think that conversation we're going to have, the one that we're having now is this something that you want to try? The numbers that I've seen, that I've looked at, if we keep the sales tax base broad, the sales tax could still be very low and then still not have an income tax.
Okay. So what about the spending side of this? Because, a lot of people would look at the Missouri budget and see it's more or less doubled over the last 10 years. So how much does reining in spending have to be part of this equation?
Well, in Missouri, we have a balanced budget, and so we can't spend more than we bring in. And so I'm not worried about that so much as getting rid of people's income taxes. In Missouri, we have to balance the budget. We have the Hancock Amendment protections, and so we would still have our spending moderated at the same time as getting rid of people's income taxes and lowering people's property taxes.
But wouldn't then also it make sense that the more you can rein in spending, the quicker those triggers would be put in place to eliminate the income tax?
Yes, you're right about that. And we actually have another piece of legislation out there that other states like Colorado have that rein in spending. So I think you could do both. Mm-hmm. That's a good point that you bring up. And if at the lower spending you have, the easier it would be to lower income taxes. But of course, in Missouri, we have the Hancock Amendment, and the balanced budget. So our spending is usually pretty moderated because of those two things.
What do you say to some of the people who don't like this idea of eliminating the Missouri state income tax, moving to a sales tax base, and they'll say, hey, this is regressive. This actually impacts, poor people, working class people. It's something that really is just a cut for the wealthiest Missourians. How do you respond to those folks, which I know you're hearing a lot of right now?
Yeah, and that's the talking point that you hear. What I would tell you is Missouri is a Republican-led state. If you look at a Democrat-led state like Virginia, Guess what they're doing? They're doing the exact same thing. They're looking at the sales tax because our sales tax system doesn't really reflect modern life. When we put it into place in the 1930s, there was no way to envision all of the things that we do. And so red states, blue states are looking at modernizing their sales tax base. And no one would accuse anybody in Virginia of trying to put in a regressive tax or hurting the poor. They're doing it. They have a Democratic governor. The difference between us and Virginia is they're looking to bring in revenue. We're looking to bring in revenue from the sales tax as well, but we're not going to let the government keep it. We want to lower people's income taxes and property taxes with it. So to say that it's regressive, you'd have to say that, well, Democrats in Virginia are trying to be regressive.
Okay.
They're not. They're just trying to modernize the system like we are.
Mm-hmm. So when currently, I remember that Governor Parson did sign a piece of legislation that also lowers the income tax in Missouri when revenues, I guess, hit a certain goal, right? So how is this dramatically different? Does it expedite the cuts based on the revenue goals?
The slow decrease in the income tax, it's about the same. For every $20 million extra we bring in, we would lower the income tax by 0.1%. The current legislation that's in place says if it brings in more than $150 million more than expected, you would lower it by 0.1%. So those triggers are in place. The thing that would allow us to accelerate it is to modernize the sales tax base.
Gotcha. Okay, so
if we decide to do that, if this passed.
Okay, so then what would be a realistic target goal, like year, where Missouri would be at zero income tax?
Well, the goal in the legislation would be to do it by 2032. So, in other states, and we won't mention those, Pete, they've tried this and it has gone wrong. The plan that we put in place is very gradual. It's conservative. We have triggers, and we have to decide if and when we want to do it to get to zero. But it's phased out over time so that there aren't any shocks to the budget system. We've learned from what other states have tried to do, and I think this is a really conservative approach and conservative way to do it.
So those other states that you're referring to, they rhyme with like Ramses?
Perhaps.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I just want to make so you're saying that you're trying to learn from the mistakes that Kansas made, where it was just like immediate cut down to zero and let's hope this works. You're not going to make the mistakes that were made in Kansas during Sam Brownback.
No, we're going down in 0.001% increments, and then in terms, I just want to go back to the regressive talking point that you had earlier that we hear from some people. In this scenario, you'd have an expansion of the sales tax base. So people have brought up, yes, could this mean that you now pay a sales tax on dog walking services? Sure, if that's what we decide to do. But if you look at it, the average person is going to get to keep about $1,700 more in their pocket just from income tax. You would need to buy probably about $30,000 worth of dog walking to spend that much on sales tax. So I think, again, the principle of just let people keep their hard-earned dollars, let them go spend it how they like. I think it's a better system than taxing people's progress and their labor and their efforts.
Jon Patterson, Missouri Speaker of the House on KCMO Talk Radio. So your confidence level in getting this done and then obviously getting it to the people for a vote sometime this year, how high is your confidence on this thing moving ahead and proposing to the people through a ballot the opportunity to eliminate the state income tax?
Well, I'm optimistic about it, but it has to go through the Missouri Senate, and you never know what's going to happen there. But I'll be over there. I know the governor's pushing for it, and I think there's a good chance we get it done and just let the people vote on it.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. Last thing, the Missouri congressional map obviously got upheld yesterday by a Missouri judge. Your quick reaction to that as well?
Well, I think it's fairly consistent what we've seen around the country. The Supreme Court has ruled in Texas that it was constitutional. Other states are doing this. I don't think there was ever a question about the constitutionality of it. I think states, it's their prerogative to make their congressional districts, and you're doing it at the state legislature level, which is really responsive to the people. So I wasn't surprised by it, and I think it's consistent with what we've seen around the country.
All right. Missouri Speaker Jon Patterson at Elise Summit on KCMO. Thank you for being here. We appreciate the time.
Thanks, Pete.
All right. Jon Patterson, good stuff there. We appreciate him joining us on 95.7 FM on a Friday morning. The Pentagon just gave an update on Operation Epic Fury. This comes hours after it was confirmed by Central Command that the United States lost 4 service members yesterday in a refueling accident in western Iraq. What did the Pentagon just say moments ago? We'll share that with you coming up next on KCMO.
The fun's not done after Mundo in the Morning. Hey, it's Kevin Keatsman. Join me for Uncanceled at 10 o'clock right here on KCMO Talk Radio.
So, update here in the last 15 minutes from the Pentagon. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth taking the podium, and this comes hours after Central Command announced that 4 U.S. service members were killed yesterday when a refueling aircraft crashed in western Iraq. This was about 2 o'clock Eastern time, but Central Command confirmed the news early this morning at about 4 o'clock our time. 4 of the 6 crew members aboard the aircraft have been confirmed dead as rescue efforts continue, and the identities of the service members are being withheld pending notification of next of kin. They'll be released in the next 24 hours after those notifications are complete. So that takes the loss of life from the United States in Operation Epic Fury up to 11. This morning, Pete Hegseth gave a 10-minute press conference. This was at the start of the 7 o'clock hour here, and this is part of what the Secretary of War had to say.
Iran has no air defenses. Iran has no air force. Iran has no navy. Their missiles, their missile launchers, and drones being destroyed or shot out of the sky. Their missile volume is down 90%. Their one-way attack drones yesterday, down 95%. And as the world is seeing, they are exercising sheer desperation in the Straits of Hormuz. Something we're dealing with, we have been dealing with it, and don't need to worry about it. We're on plan to defeat, destroy, disable all of their meaningful military capabilities at a pace the world has never seen before.
All right, so that's obviously Pete Hegseth. As he should be doing, that's the job, right? Talk about how our troops, our men and women in the military, are doing an incredible job in Operation Epic Fury. But you obviously also had a loss of life as we get set to enter a third week of Operation Epic Fury here in the next couple of days. And Pete Hegseth did talk about that as well in this other clip from this morning here on KCMO Talk Radio.
We will stop at nothing to win. War is hell. War is chaos. And as we saw yesterday with the tragic crash of our KC-135 tanker, bad things can happen. American heroes, all of them. And as I have with all of them, as we have, we will greet those heroes at Dover, and their sacrifice will only recommit us to the resolve of this mission. But war in this context and in pursuit of peace is necessary, which is why each day on bended knee we continue to appeal to heaven, to Almighty God's providence, to watch over and give special skill and confidence to our leaders and to our warriors. To those warriors who this nation prays for every single day, I hear from all of you out there who pray for them every day. Stay on bended knee and pray for them. I continue to say to them, Godspeed. May the Lord bless you and keep keep going.
All right, that was Pete Hegseth just moments ago giving an update from the Pentagon. Now, this comes a few hours after the President of the United States posted on his Truth Social, watch what happens to these deranged scumbags today. Tell me how you really feel. Holy smokes. So this was, obviously we have not seen war happen in a social media age, and we certainly haven't seen it happen in a social media age when Donald Trump is also the President of the United States, which brings on a whole new element. The president writing at about midnight last night, we are totally destroying the terrorist regime in Iran, militarily, economically, and otherwise. Yet, if you are reading the failing New York Times, you would incorrectly think that we are not winning. Iran's Navy is gone. The Air Force is no longer. Missiles, drones, everything else being decimated. That's what Pete Hegseth was just talking about. Their leaders have been wiped from the face of the earth. We have unparalleled firepower, unlimited ammunition, plenty of time. Watch what happens to these deranged scumbags today. They've been killing innocent people all over the world for 47 years, and now I, as the 47th President of the United States, am killing them. What a great honor it is to do so. Thank you for your attention to this matter. President, all caps, Donald J. Trump. What an honor it is to do so and wipe these scumbag terrorists off the face of the earth. I mean, is that the most Trump post on social media you've ever heard and seen in your life? That's unbelievable. Now, obviously, it's a good thing that all these people are out in Iran. There's no doubt about it, right? But you also have other factors at play here. And that's where it's a delicate balancing act. I agree with the mission here. But the delicate balancing act is that on the left and the right, there is not a great appetite for any kind of major foreign conflict. There isn't. Even if it's the right thing to do, the appetite's not there. There's not a long-term vision on this stuff for Americans who remember the disasters, most notably of Iraq, going back, less than 20 years at this point. And now, they're obviously releasing 172 million barrels of oil from the Strategic Petroleum Reserves. They're doing that to try to get gas prices back down. But at the same time, the best way to get it back down is to figure out how to reopen and allow oil to flow out of the Strait of Hormuz and get oil to other parts of the world, because these markets are all global at this point. And, they have a good story to tell here, right? They do. There's no doubt about it. But then it's okay. For the people back here at home, they're going to be wondering, what's the pain for me look like? And in a me environment, I want it and I want it now. That's a difficult sell for the administration, even though I do believe that the mission by and large is the correct one. And it's been a success. But they will lose a little bit of leverage with each passing day. It's just a reality. Renee Erickson is the education chair in Kansas. Johnson County schools are complaining about money. She'll share the details and the information next.
Vince Colonnese here. Join me for your lunch hour from 11 to 2 on 95.7 FM, KCMO Talk Radio.
Well, they're going through the process of figuring out the budget right now in Topeka. And right on cue, you had school districts here in Johnson County, Olathe, Blue Valley, and Shawnee Mission all send out letters 2 days ago to parents in the school district basically saying, we're getting shorted by the state on special education funding, and therefore, we don't know what the future looks like. I just want to play some audio from specifically Olathe Superintendent Brent Yeager, who spoke a couple of days ago about this, and here's what he had to say, and then we'll get the response from Renee Erickson. She is a Kansas State Senator, and she is the chair of the Education Funding Task Force. Here was Olathe Superintendent Brent Yeager in a video that the Olathe School District put out 2 days ago.
The other budget factor that's really impacting us in our district, as well as all districts almost across the state of Kansas, is the underfunding of special education. In our district alone, we transferred $44 million from our general education fund to balance our special education fund last year. And special education is really important to note because it's a federal law. We can't not do what we're mandated to do. So what happens is we take that money out of our operating fund that supports compensation for our staff, innovative programming, maintenance of our buildings, all of the money that does the other things. And when we take $44 million out of that to balance SPED, it has an impact on every student and every staff member in and out of our schools each and every day. So that's an important thing for us to note.
As the chair of the Education Funding Task Force, Senator Erickson, how would you respond to the Olathe superintendent?
Hey, good morning, Pete. Good to be with you. Well, I of course, empathize with districts as they see declining enrollment and are struggling to make their budgets meet. But the fact of the matter is that schools are fully funded. Even our governor will tell you that schools are fully funded, including special education based on the school funding lawsuit. The state Supreme Court accepted the legislature's proposal to fully fund schools, which included one-time increase of special education of $44 million plus $7.5 million per year after that. Pete, we have done that and more. In fact, over the last 5 years, we've increased special education funding from the state over $100 million. So we all want special education students taken care of, but the fact of the matter is the state is providing the funds.
So where is this all getting lost then in the equation when these schools say, oh, cuts are coming? The Kansas City Star had a piece today that they put out there saying Blue Valley families fear music class cuts. District says it needs more state money. What's going on here?
Great question. Well, this is all hinging on a statute. The statute is 72-3422 that has in there that the state will pay for 92% of special education excess costs. What a lot of people don't want to acknowledge and what the education establishment knows is, like all appropriation laws, we put in the statute and the very next line says, subject to appropriation acts of the legislature. Meaning that's not a guarantee 92%. It's subject to legislators taking a look at the state of the economy of Kansas and appropriating accordingly. But here's the other big piece of the puzzle, Pete. We don't get credit for all of the money that's going to special education. The 92% formula doesn't count all of that. For example, if we counted all of this special education state aid, the money that the state pays for the Kansas State School for the Blind and the Deaf, those are special education students, and all of the USD LOB required for special education, we are actually at 100% of excess costs. When I hear superintendents, and I empathize, talk about transferring money out of their operating budget, the fact is, Pete, up until a couple of years ago, districts, they levy money locally based on their special education student count. There was no requirement that they use that money for special education students. Some districts did. A lot of them used it for their general education students. So we passed a law that said your special education local option budget must go to a special education student account. You can't spend that on other students. That's for special education. Now they have to put that in a separate account, but that's not counted toward the 92% excess cost formula. So there's a lot of different variables at play here.
Renee Erickson, she is the chair of the Education Committee in Topeka on KCMO Talk Radio. State Senator joining us. All right, here's what I'm hearing, Senator. I mean, everything you're saying makes a lot of sense. It's also very much in the weeds. And when the other side is saying, give us money, if not, we're cutting music classes, kids are getting hosed, they're not getting a great education, that's a lot easier for people to understand than everything you just said, talking about state statutes and percentages and things like that. So how do you get this across to the people in a way that is, frankly, easier to understand? Because let's be honest, that's not easy to understand.
I agree, Pete. I 100% agree, but I have faith in the ability of your audience to understand. But you're absolutely right. This is a great talking point. Look, we want to squeeze the legislature for more money, and the way we do it is to hit parents on things that matters to them. I'm surprised they're not trying to cut sports programs. That's normally where they try to apply the pressure point. But let's also consider that specifically for Olathe, and this what might resonate a little bit better. In the last 2 years, they have 725 fewer students. The state has given them $15 million more dollars. So we are giving them more money for less students. So the question then becomes, what are they spending it on?
Boom.
Well,
that's it right there. Yeah, go ahead.
What are they spending it on? And I'll tell you this, administrative expenditures per pupil in Olathe has gone up 130%. Enrollment in the last 20 years has gone up 23% in Olathe, but administration per pupil has gone up 130%. So the question then becomes, where is the money going? And here's the most important thing to me, Pete, that we lose so much when we start talking about money and education. What are we getting for the money? How is the money affecting student outcomes and helping our students be more successful? Fact of the matter is, sadly, Olathe's ACT score is at 19. It was 22 10 years ago, your ACT score. So I think the question is, where's the money going? Because the money is there, and that's a local decision. And what are we getting for our kids for that money?
I think that's the winner right there. So, okay, just so I have those numbers correct, and for people that might have been, driving and didn't hear them, you've given Olathe $15 million more for special education, or just the whole deal?
In state funds.
In state funds,
we've given them, right, $15 million more, and they have 725 fewer students in the last 2 years.
Okay, so $15 million more over 2 years with 700 fewer students over the last 2 years.
Correct.
And then you said the administrative cost per pupil up 130% since when?
In the last 20 years, while enrollment's been up 23% over that time period. Now, we've seen a dip in the last 5 years. But in the last 20 years, enrollment's up 23%, but administrative cost per pupil's up 130%.
That's unbelievable. That's a number right there that people can latch onto and say, okay, yes, what are you doing with those monies that you currently receive from the state, but even locally, right? I mean, we're a week removed from Olathe getting $400 million in new bonding, and now 9-10 days later, they're coming out crying poverty. So it does seem like there's a disconnect between what the school district is saying and then what's actually happening on the ground. So where does this go from here in terms of, I'm sure there's a big push up in Topeka this week to get more funding. It seems like this was carefully coordinated by area superintendents. And, you've got the Kansas City Star and others hopping on board. What's the reaction, if any, in Topeka to this and how this moves forward?
Yeah, great question. Well, this is nothing new. Every year, the districts come to us needing more money. But I would challenge local community members, look at the priorities of where the money is being spent. I can provide all of the data about how much more the state is spending on education. We're looking at a budget deficit in about 3 years here in Topeka. We have a responsibility to be good stewards, but at the local level, ask where the money's going and how that's benefiting students. I think that's the key because the money is there. I will tell you, Pete, the money is there. It's a matter of priorities.
And you are giving them more money, right? Based on something you were saying earlier, you are required to give them more money for special education funding. It's just not as much as they want?
Correct. We've given them over $100 million more in the last 5 years. And in fact, Pete, here's a statistic for you. Every year we are required by the school funding lawsuit to give an increase based on the CPI. This year alone, that was $159 million. And we have about 4,000 fewer students statewide. So they're getting more money, fewer students. So where is that money going?
4,000 fewer students across the state year over year?
This was just last year.
Yeah, just over the last year.
Yeah.
Wow. And $159 million more to the schools across the board. And did I see, I think our friend Mike Thompson, State Senator at Shawnee, sent me the numbers, that special education funding, you said over $100 million, but I thought he sent me something saying that in fiscal year 2021, the schools were getting about $1 billion for special education. Now it's up to $1.25 billion, so $250 million more. Does that sound right, or is that off?
Well, Pete, that is total education, special education expenditures. So in 2021, schools spent $1 billion. In 2025, they spent $1.25 billion. But in that same time is when we increased the funding by $100 million.
Gotcha. And also a point of clarity when it comes to what is considered special education funding. We had a caller reference yesterday that gifted and talented programs, or whatever they're called now, are under the special education umbrella. It's not just special needs, but it's also the gifted and talented programs. Is that considered special education funding?
Yes, and we are one of about 4 states that includes gifted as an exceptionality, just like we would any other special education exceptionality. And Pete, that's about 10,400 gifted students in Kansas get the same funding level as other special education students. And we're just one of 4 states that do it that way. So I will tell you, we are looking at that. We will fund gifted, but maybe there's a different way to fund it than through special education.
Okay. Senator Renee Erickson, great to have you on the show. Thank you for being here. We appreciate the information.
My pleasure. Thank you, Pete. Have a great day.
All right. There you go. She is the chair of the Education Funding Task Force in Topeka, State Senator Renee Erickson. I mean, like, that's it right there, okay? That's the information. Just to use Olathe as an example, they've received $15 million more over the last 2 years from the state with 725 fewer students. And, you know, you got the superintendent putting out videos on YouTube saying we have no money. What are you doing with it? In Olathe alone, administrative costs per pupil up 130% the last 20 years. Meantime, enrollments over that same period of time up 23% and trending down the last 5 years. That's great data. I mean, you know, you want to sit there and cry poor. Well, what are you doing with what you've got? And by the way, the teachers are getting hosed in all of this. I mean, that's the other part of it. The teachers are getting hosed. 913-408-7957. They're the ones who should be making more money. Instead, God knows where it's going, to bloated administrative costs, as far as I can tell, but not to the classroom, which is where it belongs, with great teachers. That's where it belongs. Instead of making it a jobs program at the administrative level, get it in the classroom to the teachers and get it to then helping the kids directly. And that's an easy way to do it. 913-408-7957. I got to get to more. Top of the hour, I got to get to this story. The property tax issue in Kansas is an absolute mess. We'll get to that after the top of the hour. But coming up next, I made somebody very upset in Kansas City who is not in the news or political arena and is not even a Kansas Citian. I didn't really mean to do it, but I kind of went viral for it. I'll explain what happened next. All right, it's a Friday, and I'm trying to figure out where the heck this week just went. Running around, 3 little kids, working, trying to get in some Big 12 tournament action. What's going on here? Well, the good news is when I need to pick up those groceries, Hy-Vee makes it so simple. All right, pickup or delivery from Hy-Vee is so easy. Download the app, go to Hy-Vee.com, choose your store, select your items. Hy-Vee does all the shopping for me. As much as I love walking into a Hy-Vee, when I have to save time, let them do the shopping. I just pick up my order, have it delivered right to my house. It could not be easier. Save time, save money. What could be better? Only at Hy-Vee.
from the nation's heartland. You're listening to Mundo in the Morning on 95.7 FM, KCMO Talk Radio.
Went to the Big 12 tournament yesterday during the afternoon and into the evening. I didn't stay for the end of the KU game. I just, I knew I couldn't be up that late. But caught the Arizona UCF game, and then the early evening game was Houston versus BYU. So after the Arizona game, you know, they're the number one team in the Big 12 right now. Their head coach, Tommy Lloyd, came to the podium. So I was there. I was talking to the coaches, and I asked Tommy Lloyd about the Big 12 tournament being in Kansas City. Because he said, before I asked him the question, he noted how there were not a lot of Arizona fans there yesterday. And there weren't. I mean, Arizona UCF was dead. It was after the Iowa State game. Of course, all the Iowa State fans come down, and they love being in Kansas City. They might as well be in Cancun when you come down from Des Moines in mid-March. They're having a blast. They're drinking all the Busch Light they can find down at Power and Light. But Arizona didn't have a lot of fans. I get it. Like, Tucson to Kansas City is not an easy trip, right? Mark's making the reverse trip soon.
I'm making it to later today.
Yeah, Mark's on his way to Tucson. He's looking for Nancy Guthrie while he visits family. But, you know, I get it. Like, that's not an easy trip. And if you're an Arizona fan and you know you're going to the NCAA tournament, too, as a one seed, you might want to save your money and be like, you know what, I'll save my money for NCAA tournament trips. Like, I get it. But I asked the head coach of the Arizona Wildcats about Kansas City and about playing the Big 12 tournament here, which it's going to be here through at least 2031. And he wasn't happy with me. He got cut. He got short. Now, I'm used to that doing interviews, but it was obviously a different lane doing it on the sports side. So I asked Tommy Lloyd, the Arizona head coach, about the Big 12 tournament being here. Here's what he said.
100%. Would I want this in Vegas? Yeah, 100% I will. But, like, you know what? I didn't ask to be in the Big 12. We got put in the Big 12. I didn't have any input on it, but I love being in the Big 12. So if they tell me we're playing in Kansas City, we're loading up the plane and going to Kansas City. We're not going to sit there and overthink it. And you guys can do all that stuff, or you can have another coach give you opinions on what he would want. I just want to get on the floor and try to kick ass and play 40 minutes. That's it.
Now, I don't blame him for saying that. He was clearly annoyed by the question, but I don't blame him for saying that. That's what he should do. He should lobby for his own fans. He should lobby for his team. It'd be better for Arizona if the Big 12 tournament was in Las Vegas. To me, it doesn't make any sense to put it in Vegas. It's further west than any team in the Big 12, and, you know, it would be a long trip for a lot of those Eastern Big 12 teams. So I think Kansas City right now, geographically speaking, makes the most sense for this Big 12 tournament.
KC to Vegas, you go from the biggest thing in town to the what, 180?
Yeah.
197?
Yeah.
You know, as
Yeah.
long as David Copperfield's still playing, you're down the list still.
Where's Barry Manilow when you need him? Jeez.
I think David Copperfield was canceled recently.
Oh, was
He's
he?
still finishing out his run, though, I believe.
Yeah, and he still would be probably bigger than the Big 12 tournament being there, to your
right.
point.
Yeah.
So you get to own Kansas City versus being, like John said, the 175th biggest thing in Vegas in mid-March. It makes sense. I like it here. Now, if you want to rotate it come 2031, do 2 years in Kansas City, 1 year in Dallas. 2 years in Kansas City, 1 year in Phoenix.
I like that.
I'm not opposed to that.
The conference is spread out so wide now, it's silly. So you might as well move around to 3 or 4 places.
I'm okay with that. I do think that would make some sense. I also would try to pick more mid-sized cities where you can own the town. Wichita, Oklahoma City.
Oklahoma City would do well.
I would look to things like that versus trying to find the biggest city that you can find.
BB's in a boxcar in Dallas.
Exactly.
Right? You know?
Yeah, that's what I would try to do if I was the Big 12. But Tommy Lloyd, for some reason, just got a little triggered on that question yesterday, which tells me he really doesn't like coming to Kansas City. He just didn't want to say it. That's what this was all about.
Well, when people ask you about things that are out of your control, you're like, come on, man, what do you want me to say? Right?
Yeah, I know. I get it. But you know what? I got to ask the question because there was a huge story. Right. A huge story in a Tucson, Arizona newspaper this week about not bringing back the Big 12 tournament to Kansas City. And then Quentin Lucas wrote a piece in the Kansas City Star yesterday saying why it should be in Kansas City. That's why I asked him about it.
I like the pointed his response rather than just a cliche. On the other hand,
Oh, he gave some good stuff there.
Yeah,
He did.
Yeah,
He
I
did.
like his emotion.
Coming up next on KCMO Talk Radio News in a minute, and then they're continuing to let us down on a key property tax issue next. It is such a bad look in Topeka right now. It really is on the state property tax issue that they just can't get a handle on. They can't get relief to Kansans. And I wish I could be more optimistic about it, but I can't be. They're failing at every turn. Now, the House has been worse than the Senate on this in Topeka, but honestly, I mean, they're all going to be pointing the finger at somebody else anyway. That's just how it goes. So yesterday, you had the news that property tax efforts collapse as one bill fails in the House, another passed over in the Senate. This was first reported by the Sunflower State Journal and Brad Cooper, who does a very good job on the ins and outs of Topeka. And you know, you had earlier in the day on Thursday, a bill capping property tax assessments at 3% failed to advance to final action in the House, leaving its future cloudy. Bill's not dead, writes Cooper, but will remain on the House calendar and can be brought up at any time, possibly for compromise tax legislation or if votes start to coalesce behind the measure. And then later Thursday, the Senate passed over a House bill that would allow taxpayers to use a protest petition to stop local governments from spending more in property taxes than they did the year before. So I'm sure they'll both point the finger at each other. We don't care. And when I say me, I mean us, like regular Kansans and taxpayers. We don't want to hear about their infighting. We don't want to hear about their finger pointing. The reality is it's now another year in Topeka where Republicans have a supermajority in the House and the Senate, and they can't come to some agreement on what property tax relief and really limitations look like for regular homeowners and taxpayers. They just can't do it. At a time when homeowners are getting squeezed, assessments just came out across the state. People are about to see another likely increase in their property taxes coming up later this year. And Topeka is not doing squat about it. Now, there'll be people running for statewide office being like, I'll take care of your property taxes. You just wait till I'm in office again in some other position. Then I'll definitely fix it. Come on, man. Please. You really think that's going to work? Especially, let's be honest, the other part of this that just makes this thing really icky is when you have a Chiefs deal where they are completely exempt from paying any property taxes. You're spending a lot of time and energy and money on diverting any property tax payments for the Chiefs, which, listen, they're not unique in that sense, but it's a really bad look. When the $7 million the Chiefs are going to be paying in basically rent is going to go back into their coffers to upkeep the new stadium as they see fit, and you're cutting every deal under the sun imaginable for this team on what, you know, most people who follow this stuff say is the biggest sweetheart deal and the worst deal for any taxpayer in the history of stadium deals in America. You can't get regular property tax relief for everyday Kansans as these cities continue to spend and spend and spend at out of control levels. When Johnson County has doubled its spending over less than a decade from $900 million to $1.8 billion. When Overland Park, on a similar note, has increased its spending 40, 50% the last few years, and you guys just can't get something together that gives some kind of relief or cap to the abusive nature of property taxes, people basically paying taxes on unrealized gains for the right to live in the home that they bought. It's so offensive on so many levels. And I don't want to hear about it. I don't think most of us want to hear about it. It's like, just get it done. Get the job done. If there's one thing to pressure these people on for the rest of the legislative session in Topeka, it's this issue. This is it. This is all that we should care about between now and the end of session. And if they can't get this done while simultaneously giving the Chiefs everything that they want and then some, I mean, I don't care who it is, Republican, Democrat. I just want to wipe the slate clean. Seriously, I mean, it's so frustrating at this point to deal with the increases in taxes. On top of that, I shared this and we talked about this a couple of days ago. The outflow migration in Kansas has been one of the worst in the country over the last year. I'll put the chart up on my Facebook page so you can see it for yourself. Pete Mundo on KCMO Talk Radio. But the only states worse than Kansas in outflow migration have been like California, Illinois, New York, and a couple of other states that you do not want to be in the company with, to be very clear. And what's the answer in Topeka? The answer is sorry, we'll try again next year. The answer is sorry, once we get the governor's mansion back, it'll be A-OK. Based on what? I mean, stuff has to get to the governor's desk through the House or the Senate. You guys can't get even that done with a supermajority. So why would suddenly changing who's in the governor's mansion impact any of this? What evidence is there to suggest that's the case? Don't worry, give us more power. We'll fix it next time. No, you won't. No, you won't. It's the issue that most Kansans care about beyond anything else right now. And while some people are going to be out there taking victory laps on like saving the Chiefs or something, which is just, it's laughable on so many levels. People are going to be like, great, can't afford to go to a game because my property taxes just went up another couple $100. So thanks so much, guys. What else can you do for me? Oh, nothing? Got it. Thanks. 913-408-7957. That is the text line and the studio line here on KCMO Talk Radio. And, you also have, you got conflict of interest here in some cases. I mean, let's just be honest. You have people who are in the legislature and they're also in local office. I mean, you have too many members in the House in particular that also have ties to local government. When someone who sits on the Olathe City Council, like Robin Essex, is also a state legislator, which is legal, it's allowed, but you don't think that creates a conflict of interest? If you are able to spend money in the city that you live in and represent, and then you also have a seat at the table in the state house, you don't think that that's like potentially an issue? And that's not to, go after a single person, fine people. Well, most of them are fine people. Republicans, even a lot of the Democrats that I may disagree with are fine people. But they just can't get the basics done. They can't get that relief that regular people, I think, on the left and the right are begging them for right now in Topeka. It could largely be done on a bipartisan basis. Now, the Democrats may be more interested in protecting local government's ability to grow government and spend more. But I do think finding relief could be something that has some bipartisan support. And they just can't do it. Dennis, you're first up on KCMO. Hey, Dennis.
Hey, good morning, Pete. I won't go off like I did the other day, but I will say this. As you know, I'm a numbers guy. I bought a new truck last year. Yeah, it was a pretty nice truck. Between the sales tax I paid to the state of Kansas and the personal property tax I pay to the state of Kansas, if you put those two numbers together, divide them, I am paying the state of Kansas $478 a month to drive my new truck. Then you throw in my property tax on my house, I'm paying the state of Kansas $1,100 a month for two items that I own. State of Kansas don't own them. The bank don't own them. I own them. That's why I'm so frustrated about it, Pete.
That's an excellent way to put it, Dennis. People always complain about the personal property tax on the cars, and trust me, I'm not a fan of it. When I get my letter in July or August or whatever it is, and they say, hey, you owe us several $100s on personal property taxes on your cars, I don't hate it, but it's not the worst tax in the world in the sense that, like, it goes down every year, right? As the value of your car goes down, it goes down every year. You got to fund government somehow. I get that. If you had a personal property tax on the vehicle, but Kansas actually did the work that needed to be done on property taxes and income taxes, I'd say, okay, I get it. You got to fund government somehow. I'm not sitting here and saying don't have it. But when you have that on top of all the other things, that's where it gets abusive in nature. And something Renee Erickson said last hour on the show, Kansas facing a budget deficit in 3 years. In 3 years, Kansas is facing a budget deficit. Their spending is out of control in Kansas. And on top of that, they are going to forego years of additional sales tax revenues in 300 square miles in Wyandotte County and Johnson County. That's going to pay off a stadium for the Kansas City Chiefs as they're 3 years away from a budget deficit. I mean, these guys and gals, I wouldn't let them run my household budget based on how they're running the state budget. And their inability to care about regular people right now. It's an utter failure, and Republicans deserve just as much blame in Topeka as any Democrat does. Coming up next, Mark Alford is going to be here a day after the Missouri maps get upheld, so he will have a congressional district that represents much more of Kansas City. Plus, the DHS shutdown. When does this end? Mark Alford is next. At 8:16, let's give away those Thomas Rhett tickets. Final chance right now. 7th caller, 913-408-7957. Thomas Rhett will be at Morton Amphitheater up in Riverside coming up in October. 7th caller, final chance to win. 913-408-7957.
From Overland Park to Parkville, you're listening to Mundo in the Morning on 95.7 FM, KCMO Talk Radio.
All right, John, who won the tickets there?
Mary in Kansas City, our final winner for the Thomas Rhett Soundtrack of Your Life tour, and that's going to stop at Morton Amphitheater October 23rd with Zach John King and Emily Ann Roberts. And since you're not Mary, you can buy some tickets here in a couple hours, open at 10 a.m. this morning.
All right, very good. Congratulations, Mary. Let's say congratulations to Missouri Congressman Mark Alford, 4th Congressional District. The map was upheld yesterday after Missouri did some redistricting last year, so he will now officially represent the southern half of Jackson County, Missouri. So further back into the old stomping grounds here in KC. Congressman, good morning. How is your strategy, if at all, changing based on now the constituency that you will hold?
Well, good morning, Pete. Yeah, thank you so much. I'm not spiking the football just yet. We still have one case to be decided by the Missouri Supreme Court. Is it constitutional to, in the middle of a decade, to redistrict? We think it is. There's no specific prohibition in the Missouri Constitution about doing that. That's going to be announced at the end of this month, I believe, and after the close for filing for our particular races. And so I think even if the court rules against the map, which I don't think they will, it's going to be moot for this go around, and we will have reformed 5th Congressional District and 4th Congressional District, at least for this cycle. I'm excited. I was down in the plaza last night meeting with some friends. You know, I spent so much time in Kansas City proper, and I love our existing 4th Congressional District. We travel it all the time, 24 counties, from the Lake of the Ozarks over to the state line and from almost the Arkansas border, if you will, up to Kansas City. Full of good people, but it's also exciting to almost like coming back home to represent those people who know me well in Kansas City proper, the business district there, the plaza, the Crown Center area, all these places that I have worked in, even in the urban core, that I've worked with pastors and charities to help boost that area as well. It's exciting to be able to say that, hey, if you believe in me, I will fight for you. And we may not always agree with everything politically, but we all want the same things, Pete. I don't care if you live in Camden County or the urban core of Kansas City. We all want security in our homes, security in our streets, our businesses, our economy. I think most people don't want open borders. We want low tax. I think a lot of people who are squawking out there that a conservative Republican cannot represent Kansas City are just dead wrong. We believe in the same core values that made America great.
Well, let me ask you, how are they dead wrong when a lot of these people that you are now going to be representing, let's be honest, did not vote for President Trump and did vote for Emmanuel Cleaver? So as you welcome in thousands of those constituents, how does it change your strategy and what you do in D.C., if at all?
Well, I'm thinking the core values of what we stand for as Americans. We have a lot more in common than we do that divides us. Yeah, there's issues on abortion and things like that. We're not going to agree on that, okay? I'm a conservative. I will not change my conservative vote, but I will do the best to listen to everyone, whether you're down in Bates County or up here on Ward Parkway or in the urban core. It doesn't really matter. We're going to be listening. We're going to have an office in Kansas City proper somewhere. If the voters want me to represent them, we're going to do that. We're going to fight equally as hard for folks when it comes to the benefits and the money that the federal government's holding on to. Our office so far has returned over $12 million in 3 years to constituents the federal government was holding on to. And when you call our office, we don't ask if you're a Republican or Democrat. We fight for you without any regard to political affiliation. So we're going to be fighting for people. We're going to be listening. And again, we know that we're not going to agree with people on a lot of different issues, but that doesn't mean we can't represent you in Congress.
Mark Alford is here, Missouri's 4th Congressional District. By the way, his show, Mark Alford's Capital Recap, Saturday, 1 p.m., Sunday morning at 8:30 a.m. here on KCMO. I want to ask you, the partial shutdown of DHS continues. Yesterday, Senate Democrats defeated a motion to proceed to a House-passed bill to reopen DHS, end this 27-day shutdown, which has hampered the functions of TSA and other critical agencies. How does this end, Congressman? Because I see now that Chuck Schumer's saying that he wants to go ahead with just funding TSA. They're missing a second paycheck today, but Republicans don't want to do that. So what happens now?
Well, look, here's the story, Pete. We sent over a month ago a bill from the House that we passed funding for Department of Homeland Security that Chuck Schumer and all of them agreed that they were going to vote for this. It was a negotiated at the highest levels of funding package like we do for all appropriation bills because we got to get our government funded. They reneged on that deal because they didn't like the way that ICE was deporting illegal aliens. I get that. But you don't hold the rest of America hostage because you don't like the way one agency is doing, especially when we fully funded the ICE agency and Border Patrol through the One Big Beautiful Bill. And so they're funded for 4 years. So they're holding America hostage. They're putting lives at danger. They are making sure that not just TSA doesn't get paid, but FEMA doesn't get paid. Our cybersecurity protecting Americans at a time of war are not getting paid. Our Coast Guard, our Secret Service, all are not getting paid when we have this conflict going on with Iran right now. And we have sleeper cells out there, Islamic terrorists. We had one yesterday that killed someone at a college. And we had the incident that happened in Austin, lone wolves, if you will. Mm-hmm. We have got to be ready for this. It's going to get more, I think there's going to be more frequency of these activities in America. And if we do not fund these agencies, the Democrats are putting every life in danger. They've got to reopen this government. They're pig-headed. They're trying to put up a fight. It's just like last November, the longest shutdown in U.S. history, the Schumer shutdown at that time. He was so worried about being primaried in his next election, he had to put up a fight. They hate Trump so much, they don't want to have a victory, and they don't want ICE deporting criminal illegal aliens, and that will not stop. We will continue to do that.
All right, Congressman. Well, we'll be following and watching, and just here in the last 30 seconds or so, what happens now? What's next on that front?
You know, it's up to the Senate at this point. Mm-hmm. Our hands are tied in the House. President Trump is personally, and his administration is negotiating with this. John Thune said the other day that they put forth a counter proposal to Chuck Schumer and the Democrats, and the Democrats aren't even talking to them. We get all these complaints, you know, I see it online. Why don't you compromise? Why don't you negotiate? Number one, we did negotiate a deal, and they reneged on it. Number two, the White House has put forth a proposal, and the Democrats won't talk about it because they'd rather raise a stink and keep these people from getting paid and put our lives in jeopardy than deal with what is at hand. Do you want substantive change? There is change. They got rid of Kristi Noem. They got Tom Homan in there, who's going to do a remarkable job. We're concentrating now on deporting criminal illegal aliens. I'm sorry, the masks are not going to come off until the officers feel like their lives are no longer in danger.
Congressman, I'm up against a hard break. You know how that is back in the old TV days. Yeah. We love having you on. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Bye.
All right. Mark Alford on KCMO. His Capital Recap show airs tomorrow afternoon at 1 p.m. Charlie Gasparino, Fox Business Network, is next as the markets open up in 30 seconds.
from Smithville to Shawnee Mission. You're listening to Mundo in the Morning on 95.7 FM, KCMO Talk Radio.
All right, let's see what the markets are doing here. Dow opens up plus 330 points as the markets opened up less than 5 minutes ago. S&P's up 35. NASDAQ is up nearly 100 points as we get the Friday rolling. It was a rough day yesterday in the markets, down several hundred points. So not a very good Thursday, but bouncing back up on a Friday. So here we are, trying to wrap up the week on a high note. Of course, the markets have not been happy because, well, Operation Epic Fury, obviously. That's freaked out the markets here a little bit. You got oil prices that have gone up 50% over the last month. Oil was at $60 a barrel on Friday, February 13th, and today it is at $92 a barrel. So that's where we stand right now as we open up the markets 5 minutes ago. Charlie Gasparino of the Fox Business Network is scheduled to join us here momentarily. Hopefully we can get him on the show. If not, we got plenty to talk to you about as well at 913-408-7957. Haven't had a lot of time for your phone calls, for your reaction this morning, and there's been a lot going on. We've got, obviously, a push in Topeka for more special education funding. Missouri is looking at cutting its income tax. So all those things are going on right now in real time. So we're just monitoring all that, and if we can get Charlie Gasparino on this morning, we will do that. But right now also there is an update in Michigan where officials are providing updates on the synagogue attack that happened yesterday that thankfully did not kill anybody outside of the person who committed the attack. So that was a good thing yesterday. But then we had the tragedy at Old Dominion, which broke yesterday afternoon. So at Old Dominion in Virginia, you had one victim identified as Lieutenant Colonel Brandon Saw. He was a professor of military science and the leader of the university's ROTC program. He was a veteran of Operation Iraqi Freedom, Operation Enduring Freedom, and Atlantic Resolve. His awards include 2 Bronze Stars, Senior Army Aviator Badge, Combat Action Badge, and many others. So this guy, just an amazing, amazing American, did multiple tours valiantly fighting terrorists for his country, and he survived, only to come home and get murdered by a terrorist who was let out so that politicians could virtue signal about what, like diversity being a strength or something like that, because he was killed by this guy, Mohammed Jalloh, a former Army National Guardsman who was convicted in 2016 for attempting to provide material support to ISIS. He was a naturalized citizen who was released from federal prison in 2024. That's who this guy was. I don't think this should be controversial to sit here and say that if you are a naturalized citizen and then you get convicted of providing material support as a member of our National Guard to ISIS, you get thrown out of the country. You get deported. You are denaturalized. What are we doing in America when you can get convicted of that as a naturalized citizen and then keep your status? Could you imagine like going to any other country, right? You become a naturalized citizen of another country, somewhere else, let's say Europe, wherever.
Yep.
And then it turns out that you are actually helping the enemy that wants to destroy your country from the inside out. They put you in prison, and then you get released as if you're any other American citizen, which you're not even truly at your core an American citizen.
Yep.
No,
Yep.
You denaturalize them, you deport them, and that should be something that if we can't get Republicans and Democrats together on that, then we are further apart on that issue than even I care to admit and frankly realize.
Need an express lane for that one.
You would think so.
Right.
Take the 69 highway toll road.
Nobody, no carry on. You're gone. Just you.
You're done.
Yep.
See you later. 913-408-7957 is how you join us on KCMO. Let's just dip in real quick, Mark, on this press conference happening right now in West Bloomfield, Michigan, where they have some local officials giving an update on that synagogue attack.
Professionalism of our first responders and our partner agencies who move to protect lives and work towards stabilizing the scene. Our thoughts are with all members of Temple Israel and their families. No community should ever feel unsafe gathering in a house of worship or sending their children to school. I want to thank all the officials, colleagues, and members of the public who have reached out to me in solidarity. I would also like to thank the Shenandoah Country Club for hosting the Operations Center and being the site where the preschoolers and parents were reunited. Shenandoah is a wonderful community partner, and I thank them from the bottom of my heart. We'll continue to work closely with law enforcement and community leaders as more information comes available. Thank you, and may God bless us all.
All right, there you go. That is officials. Oh, we got Governor Whitmer. Let's do that real quick.
Is there any indication that the suspect may have expressed his intent or motives, either whether online or to a loved one, what he had planned to do yesterday?
I appreciate the importance of your question. I am not the appropriate person to answer that. We'll have to defer to the FBI as there's an ongoing investigation. Yeah, Charlie.
Governor, do you think this happened because of the conflict in Iran?
I'm not putting my theories into the press is not going to help an investigation, so I'm going to refrain from that. I do know that we have seen a rise in anti-Semitism. We have seen it over many years, predating the conflict, but certainly it is at a historic high, and I worry that that will continue. And so it's why I am calling on anyone with a platform to be very responsible with their rhetoric, not to identify or target the Jewish community. That is anti-Semitism writ large, and I don't think that any of us should permit or allow that to stand. And
okay, that's a pretty good answer from Gretchen Whitmer, the Michigan governor, after a synagogue was attacked. Now, what we know is that this person, at least what's been reported, is that this person who attacked the synagogue did lose family in Iran during Operation Epic Fury. But the reporter is trying to do something there that you are going to see more of across media. As we see radical Islamists attack Americans in Austin, Texas, 2 weekends ago, at Old Dominion University yesterday in Virginia, and also in Michigan here at this synagogue. It's very obvious what's going on. And what you're going to see now is a media push to say, well, if Trump didn't attack those poor Iranian leaders, all this stuff wouldn't be happening here in the United States. That's going to be the narrative, that Trump is causing these attacks because of Operation Epic Fury. That's it. So we'll have to see how that plays out, but that's the narrative that's going to be coming here in the days to come and weeks to come. That these attacks are not the result of extremism within the Islamic community. Not that every person who's Muslim is an extremist, but there are clear extremists in the community that want to kill Americans. And instead of making that the story, it's going to be, well, Trump triggered these people because of Operation Epic Fury. That's where this is going. And that reporter's question, trying to bait Gretchen Whitmer, the Michigan governor, into that, is a prime example. And to her credit, I mean, listen, she could have said what I just said, but she's probably got to play more of a delicate balancing act, and she didn't give a bad answer there. Coming up next, buy, sell, hold. 3 questions as we take it till 9 o'clock on KCMO. Tony Botello of Tony's Kansas City is our feature Friday in-studio guest.
Coming up at 10 o'clock, it's Uncanceled on KCMO Talk Radio, right after Pete Mundo and Mundo in the Morning.
That's right. Great couple of days yesterday with Keatsman out there at Conrad's Kitchen and Lease Summit. I was out there on Wednesday. Yesterday, I was down at the Big 12 tournament, so I didn't get to join yesterday, but I heard it was a great crowd for the Missouri game. They made a nice comeback there against Kentucky, just couldn't finish off the deal. But John got his Cuban sandwich. Mark, what did you eat yesterday?
I just went with the classic chicken tenders.
Ooh.
Just because I like
That's
to
his
try
unit of measurement in a restaurant. He was telling me what he tries first any place he goes to see how they rate.
Okay.
Yep.
How did they rate?
I like 10 out of 10.
Really?
Yeah, they were actually really good. The breading seemed like that it was like homemade or from scratch and very tasty.
Very nice. Very nice. All right, let's do it.
It's time to buy, sell,
Have it at 10, 12 and a half, 15.
and hold.
All right, John, what's on the rundown for buy, sell, or hold?
All right, buy, sell, or hold. Kansas City Mayor Lucas, Quentin Lucas, is running for governor in Kansas.
Sell. The mayor was on the show yesterday. He made some headlines when he said that he will give us a reason in the weeks to come to continue to talk about him, implying he's going to file to run for something in the region. And immediately there was speculation on this show from you and other folks on social media that maybe Quentin Lucas will go across the state line because he made some references to going to Topeka and being on the Kansas side of the state line. He'd run for governor of Kansas. It's an open seat. Laura Kelly's obviously termed out. That's not going to happen. Laura Kelly is already endorsed in the race. She endorsed this guy, Ethan Corson, who's a state rep, I believe, at a Fairway. So she's already got her horse in the race. She's not going to then back off it and say, actually, this guy Quentin's kind of good too. Let's get him over here to the Kansas side of the state line. That would be really awkward, really uncomfortable. That's not going to happen. What seems to me Quentin Lucas could do is run against Mark Alford now that the map is set on the Missouri side in the 4th District. Now, he won't win, he won't because of how the map is stacked against Democrats, but he can make himself into somewhat of a sacrificial lamb and then finish off his term as mayor. The wild card here is if Sharice Davids decides in Kansas she's going to run for Senate against Roger Marshall, and then Quentin Lucas decides, maybe I'll flip over to the Kansas side and fill Sharice Davids' seat if Mike Kelly, the Johnson County chairman, doesn't want to. That is a wild card. It's a long shot, but I'll never say never for someone who has great political ambitions like Quentin Lucas does. So I'll just leave that one as is there, John.
All right, buy, sell, or hold. Kansas City bums are nicer than New York City bums.
Buy. Kansas City bums are much nicer than New York City bums. So, having worked in New York City for 5 years, and this is how I was raised, you do not make eye contact, you do not talk to bums asking you for money. And as someone who used to get out of Fox News at about, depending on what shift I was doing, if I was doing the nighttime show from 6 to 9 p.m., I then would walk up 6th Avenue. I had a parking garage at like 57th and 8th I would park on in Manhattan and then walk down to Fox News, about a 15-minute walk, but I had a good deal on the parking. So every night, 9:30, I'd be walking up 6th Avenue or 7th or 8th or whatever, going over to the parking garage. And, you get hit up by bums all the time. And you just don't make eye contact and you keep going. You say, nope, no money, keep going. You cannot give them the time of day. You just can't. Because they're really good at their jobs, if you want to call them that. They know how to master manipulate you. I mean, they'd be great salesmen if they actually put themselves to use.
You're working the number one market in the nation, right? You work your way up to New York when you're panhandling.
Yes. So you just can't. You just have to keep your stride. You got to keep going. If you want to say, nope, got no money, got no cash, you can do that. So last night, I'm walking out of the Big 12 tournament, and I left before the KU game was over because I had to get home and get some sleep. So I'm like by myself walking to the parking garage at, where was the parking garage? Maybe 10th and Oak, something like that. And I'm crossing the street right by the parking garage, and a bum hits me up. And he goes, hey, man, you got $1? And You know, I hadn't been hit up by a bum since I probably got here, come to think of it. Maybe when we lived downtown, I got a couple of bums hitting me up once in a while. But, you know, it's been a while. But I didn't miss a beat, man. I was like right back on that wagon. And I said, nope, got nothing, and just kept my stride going. But then this bum, right at 10th and Oak, he says to me, and I've never had a bum say this to me before. He goes, hey, no problem, man. By the way, your bag's open. I was like, whoa, that's
Such a nice man.
and my, you know, I had a briefcase and the bag was open a little bit. And I'm like, all right, you know, my initial reaction is like, he's coming after me to go after whatever's in my bag. But he goes, no problem, man, your bag's open. I was like, oh, thanks. It's like, geez, now I almost feel bad. But I just kept going.
Here's a tip.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, but I'll tell you what. If that is never going to happen in New York City, where you turn down a bum and then he goes out of his way to let you know that your bag is open in the process. Because if he's doing that, I mean, something else is about to go way wrong for you, and you don't want to deal with that. But it was sad. I'll tell you what kind of, you know, we do have a problem, though, still downtown, and I know that Kansas City is going to clean it up before the World Cup. I saw the Kansas City Star had an opinion piece this morning being like, we must help the homeless, not just for the World Cup. I've been covering the Big 12 tournament for a while. I've never heard them say this over the loudspeaker in the media room. They said, if you want an escort to the parking garage, please let us know, and we'll have security escort you to the parking garage. Now, let's be honest, that's probably just for women. But it's sad that they have to even say that because the parking garage is 2 blocks down from the arena. You get out on Oak Street, you walk 2.5 blocks to 10th Street, and the parking garage is right there. And never in my time, maybe I just haven't heard it, but have they said to the media, if you want an escort to the parking garage, let us know, we'll provide it. That is a bad look for Kansas City. As much as I'm a supporter of Kansas City keeping the Big 12 tournament, that is a really bad look for Kansas City when you got to tell people you can't walk 2 blocks without potentially, you know, having a problem in downtown Kansas City, and if you need help, we'll take care of you.
Now, when Ozzy or Motley Crue comes, it's the other way around, and they tell the bums, if you need help getting to the parking lot from the metalheads, we can help you.
Oh, what's next, John?
All right, buy, sell, or hold Mark's weekend parlay for hoops.
What do you got for me, Mark?
Well, first of all, Villanova screwed me last night. Thanks, Wildcats.
Wait, now hold on. Stop with that. Your parlay
No, this is a different
lost.
parlay. Conrad's parlay lost early, but I did another one for the afternoon all the way to the evening, and Villanova was the only one that didn't hit out of the 10.
Oh, okay. All right.
So I'm
All
a little
right.
frustrated, but I'll give you today's that's going to hit.
Okay.
Ready
go
for
ahead.
it?
Yeah.
All
After
right,
you
big
rip
favorites
Villanova,
here.
you want me to buy this stupid bet of yours? But go ahead.
Michigan winning over Ohio State. Florida over Kentucky. Illinois over Wisconsin. St. John's over Seton Hall. Alabama over Ole Miss. UConn over Georgetown. Michigan State over UCLA. And the final one, Duke over Clemson. $10 to win 50.
A lot of favorites, right?
Yeah, all of them are favorites.
All right. I'm selling it just because I'm pissed at you for ragging on Villanova. All right. I'll see you on Selection Sunday, Mark.
Are you going for UConn or Georgetown, though?
Oh, gosh.
Hope they tie.
Yeah. Man, that is as bad of a question as you could ask me. It's like asking me if I like Kamala Harris or Hillary Clinton more.
Yeah.
You're killing me, Mark. Tony Botello in studio is next. As we get set on a Feature Friday here on KCMO, we bring in a guest for a long-form half-hour conversation. We have our good friend, Tony Botello of Tony'sKansasCity.com joining us. It's been, I think we talked last very early in the new year, so it's been a couple of months, man. How are you?
I'm pretty good. How are you, Pete? You were on fire just now. I liked the buy, sell, hold. That was great.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. Well, hey, you're great, too. That's why you're here. So I want to start with you on the biggest story of the week in Kansas City, and that is Dominic Miller, one of the shooters involved in the Chiefs Super Bowl parade, getting a plea deal with the Jackson County prosecutor down to basically 2 years time served. He could be out of prison here in the next couple of days or so, potentially. I had Melissa Johnson on. She's obviously making her case as to why she had to plea this thing down, or why she did plea this thing down. What's your reaction been to that this week, and how has it gone on your site?
Basically the reaction is disappointment. Just pretty like unequivocal disappointment. We had talked a bit about her over the years as she took her tenure, and unfortunately, it wasn't a new case. It was something that was already on her plate. And I think the big question was she going to step up and make unpopular? I don't know why it would be unpopular, but for the sake of argument, let's say it's an unpopular decision to really go after somebody and press charges where they merit it. And I think we got our answer this week. And I'd say it wasn't just, I started out saying maybe this was the most disappointing thing of the week. This might be the most disappointing story of the year so far, is that people could, judging by her rhetoric, she was going to hold people accountable. She was going to go after them. And maybe if she couldn't have made the case, if she would have lost the case, that would have been something. I think the way that she did it, the stand your ground defense, and really making it exceptionally political, that was the thing to where that's your clue. That's your tell. She blinked, and we are pretty much in the same boat as, at least many of my conservative friends think, we're in the same boat as we were with her predecessor, Jean Peters Baker.
See, I would disagree with that. There's no way we are in that bad of shape. Listen, she's done, I think, a pretty good job overall until this case with Dominic Miller. And this is what I said to her when she was on the show a couple of days ago. She wanted to make it about Missouri state law and stand your ground, and obviously it's too robust of a stand your ground law here in Missouri. And she made the case as to why this wasn't the case, but it seems to me that the real issue in this case was proving whether or not Dominic Miller fired the fatal shot when you have multiple people firing around like it's the Wild West. And I wish she just said, hey, we didn't have as much on Miller as we may have on Lindell Mays, the other guy who's still facing trial for this shooting. And it seems like he may be their ultimate target in all this. So we pled this thing down. I wish that would have been the case versus just immediately going to Missouri's gun laws, because we've heard that time and time again from Jackson County or Kansas City politicians, and it just immediately makes people who are gun activists and believe in, the Second Amendment put up their shield and get defensive about it. And they don't hear anything else that you're saying because you right away went to that issue, when I'm still not convinced that that's the issue here in this case.
I'm not convinced either, and that's what she said. I guess I would hope that that's the way that it plays out, that there is someone ultimately held accountable, because I think in the grand scheme of things, that really was a turning point, and maybe Keatsman will be somewhere in the background kicking over chairs, but I think that's the point where we lost the Chiefs. I think in the grand scheme of things, that will, just like Jan Stenerud missing that field goal in 1969, for 20 years later, the Chiefs were just a joke. There's these pivotal moments, and the Stenerud field goal, NFL's longest game. My dad was there, by the way.
Oh wow!
So that's like a frivolous thing. This was something serious, and I think a shootout breaking out and some poor lady getting hit in the chest, that's where we lost the team.
Well, let me disagree with you, because if they win a Super Bowl on the Kansas side, they're going to Union Station. They're not going to Wyandotte County for a rally. The Giants are in Midtown Manhattan when they do their rallies. They're not going to walk down Central Avenue in Wyandotte County for a Super Bowl parade.
They have their little joke village, their little mini city. That's what all these stupid billionaires want. They want this little joke thing. Oh, I'm king of this little village that I've created for myself. They all want this stupid idea, and they're going to build this monstrosity. And if they do win another Super Bowl, they're going to crown Clark Hunt. Oh, look what you did with all our tax money.
You really really think that they're going to have a Super Bowl parade in Wyandotte County?
I think they're going to have their little hotel complex and their little parade, and they're going to put a little crown and tell Clark Hunt what a good boy he is. I was too respectful of him last time I was here. He is the ultimate rip-off artist.
Listen, be mad at the Kansas politicians, not Clark Hunt.
Oh, I got enough anger for all of them, but he deserves it. He deserves every bit of it. It was a rip-off deal. He deserves for his...
It was, but who offered him the rip-off deal?
He's
it
not
takes
gonna,
two to tango, man.
He is not going to get a compliment from me for cleaning his plate paid for by Kansas grandchildren.
If someone offers you $10 million for Tony'sKansasCity.com, you take it. You don't think twice, right?
I'm not taking it if it's paid for by people's grandkids. If people are going to have to pay it. First of all, I guess we'd have to see. But but having said that,
I guess we'd have to see. You would take that money and you'd run to what's your vacation destination, Tony?
Someplace warm.
Okay,
but not if I. Okay, so let's make this apples to apples. It wasn't like he was starving. It wasn't like he...
No, I said yesterday, his legacy should have been Arrowhead Stadium. I agree with you in principle, but where I can't be mad at Clark Hunt and where I think the anger should be on that deal is with the Kansas politicians who are supposed to protect the people. Clark Hunt's job is not to protect Kansas taxpayers.
Well, ultimately, I agree. Ultimately, I begrudgingly agree with you because we can vote. We can hold them accountable. I can just grumble and unlike his. I can just leave mean social media comments for him. That's all
fine.
I got.
Yeah. All right. So the other thing I want to touch on is Quentin Lucas. You may have heard what he said on the show this week when he alluded to the fact that we'll be talking about him in some political capacity in the not-too-distant future. He's going to run for something.
Now, did he say, because I listened to that interview, but did he say he's going to run? I heard the political capacity we're going to be talking about him. I say he's a lackey. I say he's a lackey. I say he goes the Claire McCaskill route because that's easier.
Which is
he's
MSNBC?
A pundit. Yeah, he's an MSN Now guy. He's a pundit. He's a Democratic Party official. He's a pot stirrer because I like the idea. We were talking about him during the break about him being the poster boy of Joko wine moms.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know if that does it for him. I don't know if they really go for that.
You mean if Sharice Davids were to run for Senate, he were to backfill Sharice Davids? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. I don't know if they go for that scenario.
I do. He's young. He's a great talker. He slaps you on the back. He makes you feel good about yourself. I mean, he's a great politician.
If you call this one, you're the one that deserves the prize because that would be awesome. That would be.
I'm not predicting it. I just think it's an option. That's all. I think it's an option.
I think he goes the Democratic insider route. I think, like all aspiring politicians, he shakes the dust off this town, and we don't see him for another 20 years.
He's got kids. He's got a wife here.
Oh, they'll love it in the Beltway. There's ton. They can go to all the best private schools with all the...
So he's going to be a MS Now contributor / what? Lobbyist? Or?
Yes, okay. Lobbyist or Democratic Party. Like Quentin Lucas, head of the DNC.
Yeah. Okay. That's where you think that this goes.
That's where I would see him because I just don't see... That's always the problem with Kansas City mayor is there's nowhere to go.
Yeah, it's a dead end.
Mm-hmm.
It really has been, right? For a very long time.
For everyone but Congressman Cleaver. That's the only person that's been able to make anything out of it, and now that gravy train has come to an end.
That's a good point. I'm going to take a quick break with Tony Botello. I got to ask you about the FBI investigation going on.
Okay.
All right, we got to do that coming up here as City Hall is being investigated. Tony Botello on that and more of Tony'sKansasCity.com. Check it out. Great website for everything happening in town coming up next.
Vince Colonnese here, and I'm coming up at 11 after Kevin Keatsman on 95.7 FM KCMO Talk Radio.
We are in studio with Tony Botello of Tony'sKansasCity.com. Does a great job covering everything KC. So FBI investigation that got announced and reported on, whatever that was, a week and a half ago now. Fox 4 had it first, Tony, here locally. It is into the mayor pro tem, basically the vice mayor, Rihanna Park Shaw, and then her husband, who is the head of public works, Michael Shaw. She wants to be mayor. She's running for the open mayor's seat next year. Her husband's director of public works. It's always been a little icky when you talk about that relationship where you have the wife of a director approving his budget. I mean, that is just weird, but it's where we are. What do you make of that investigation and where it goes?
I think, they had another, there were more details about some of the subpoenas coming through. A person actually listed was a former felon who might have been subpoenaed as well. That info just came out yesterday. I got to poke a little fun out of it because the guy says, it's because of his race and his sexuality, but he still endorses Park Shaw, which I think is hilarious. The truth is I've been through quite a few federal investigations on 12th and Oak, and you don't really know until you know everybody. And the subpoenas can only tell you part of the story. Mm-hmm. And the truth is that I get a lot of on background stuff, and you always have to pull back on believing them. The sad truth is that the Pope, if he went down to 12th and Oak, could get a bid rigging, which I think this latest update is kind of, it doesn't allude to that, but it mentions contracts. It mentions contracts with an agency in Kansas City. So it implies that. And they could put the Pope on the council, and you could probably get a federal case for bid rigging on him. That is just the way, unfortunately, that politics works in Kansas City. There's no one who goes into that job who is clean. Your cleanest person, them too. Yeah. So, if you go into that job, you are going to get dirty. You are going to be vulnerable to those kind of questions. Whether or not they can make them stick is another story, because I distinctly remember, now that she's retired, she was a nice lady, and she beat a case, and I remember her and her husband dancing out on the courthouse steps when they did. That was Catherine Shields. And she had a case against her for a real estate thing, which they claimed was politicized, and they beat it. So she wouldn't be the first person that was charged. And I will note that after that moment, this doesn't preclude her from being mayor, because that was before Catherine Shields' council career. She was elected twice and reelected after her run-in with the feds. So in Kansas City, tangling with the feds is not something that ends a career.
So you think that Rihanna Park Shaw can still become mayor?
Absolutely. In fact, some of the readers have been they've shared their remarkable insights. And they've said, there's a way that she could spin this and say, hey, I'm just like you. Feds are on my case as well. Vote for me. Yeah. That is essentially
Trump's FBI, even though this started when Biden was in office. This has nothing to do with Trump.
Exactly. And unfortunately, that message will resonate amongst Kansas City voters, which is why one of the many hilarious reasons why I started the blog in the first place.
Wow. All right, Tony, how about this? I know there was something that you got traction on with the blog this week that I admit I have not talked about all week. What is it?
Missouri Workers Center putting together a petition. It's not going to go anywhere, but they're demanding $25 per hour. We demand better, fair pay, paid health care, union rights, and workplaces built on dignity and due process. They're putting together a food service bill of rights that starts with the main demand that I kind of picked out of the sludge of their blue sky. God, I can't imagine that people would decide, I want to do another social media thing that's more progressive. Anywho's, $25 per hour. And it's
as a minimum wage in Kansas City, that's what they're pushing for?
Yes. For food service workers. Everybody from the dishwasher, I wash dishes. I did not get anything close. All I got was burned hands. And $25 an hour, they are advocating. And I got a lot of traction on it, and I made a cute little AI image of, people protesting in the restaurant, and just it's just when you as somebody who is an independent, I do feel for Trump a little bit, because when we do, things are inflation is a constant. There is maybe not an affordability crisis, but there's definitely an affordability issue. But when you get people on the other side that are like, no, we need 24. And a recent study on the cost of living in Kansas City pegged the cost of living, a livable wage, at $22 per hour. So if you use that math, maybe 25 isn't that unbelievable. But just to be at home, so hoping I get some clicks on these posts, I get some of that sweet my little ad check every month. The 25 per hour sounds pretty sweet. I might be your next server if they get their way.
I know where I'm not eating, and that's wherever you're serving. Tony Botello of Tony's Kansas City is here. So that's not going anywhere, just to be clear. It's just a petition that's being pushed around Kansas City?
No, but, it all starts with public sentiment. We didn't think that the $15 wage would go anywhere, and now that is pretty much reality. I mean, these things start through grassroots
because of inflation, though.
Right.
Because of inflation and the government pumping cash into the system that we don't have to basically devalue the currency, not because of anything politically.
You are a more trusting person than I am, because without people pushing for this stuff, it doesn't happen.
Well, the Kansas minimum wage is $7 an hour.
Right.
No one's making $7 an hour in Kansas, which is my point. The marketplace is actually driving up the wages because we've devalued the currency, not the made-up minimum wage number.
To a point, I agree with that. I do get their point, and I'm on your side. This might be ridiculous, but I will say that people don't want to realize that you take what you can get, or you if you don't ask, you don't get.
Well, yeah, no, but you ask your employer. You don't ask the government to artificially screw with the economy.
But as a baseline, you mentioned the Kansas figure, and for some people that sounds unforgivable, and I'm one of them. Especially when you got money for Clark Hunt.
But no one's paying $7 an hour. That's my point.
But I do think that if that's your baseline, it's harder to ask for 15 and 16 and 17 if your employer is looking at $7 an hour. They aren't. The market isn't the only thing that they're looking at.
Maybe. All right, we got a minute or so here, so I know you want to trash on families and Snake Saturday tomorrow. What do you got?
I was going to blame you. Family friendly. Snake Saturday is a joke because it's based on being family friendly. And so mom can catch a buzz in the morning with baby and they can have a family parade. That is not, and I wanted to, the legacy of 7:10 a.m. started with Mike Murphy in 74 in a parade. And a couple of years later, it was such a great little lousy parade. I like it. It's the world's worst parade. They called it. Mayor Charles Wheeler was nice enough to bring the city trash trucks because the former radio jock, rest in peace, Mike Murphy, him and his pals had so many beer bottles on the street that they had to bring out the city trash trucks. It started very humbly, and it has a legacy at this station. And I just think that turning anything St. Patty's related in Kansas City into something family friendly is it's sacrilege.
Well, is there any reason that you can't go and get trashed in front of the kids?
Because it's geared toward the marketing is Snake Saturday is supposed to be a family friendly event now, and that is just it's straying from our history, the history of your station. I mean, these are your homies I'm talking about, Pete.
Well, I won't be there to ruin your good time, so you go there and you do whatever you want. All right, but if you get arrested, don't call me for a bailout.
I have your number.
All right. Well, I'm not answering. There you go. Tony Botello, Tony'sKansasCity.com. Good to see you, my friend.
Thanks, Pete.
All right. Caller of the day is coming up next.
From Lenexa to Lee Summit, you're listening to Mundo in the Morning on 95.7 FM, KCMO Talk Radio.
Our caller of the day this morning, we do it every morning at this time. You win absolutely nothing when you are named the caller of the day, outside of getting to hear yourself on the radio, which when you're on the call, you don't get to do. So I guess that's kind of cool. If you're still around, I don't know how many people win caller of the day and then don't even know they won caller of the day. I don't know what that looks like. I know some people wait around for 9:30 to see if they won caller of the day, and then they text all their friends. Victor in Parkville. So I've heard. But either way, this morning we had a great conversation, although a frustrating conversation, about Kansas being unable to pass property tax relief. Things stalled out yesterday in Topeka in the House of Representatives. And as a result, it's not a done deal. There's still, a few weeks left in the legislative session. But you could see and hear and read about the writing on the wall yesterday through statements made by some of the politicians who were kind of admitting it's not going to happen. Again, another year, another legislative session. Kansas is going to be unable to provide any kind of property tax relief. And to be clear, the property tax relief is not about the state's percentage of property taxes. It's not a big number. Look at your bill for your property taxes when they send that, usually second half of the year. It's peanuts. The problem with your property taxes is what's going on with your cities, your counties, and your schools. They're the ones who, even when they lower the mill rate, as the assessments keep going up, they're collecting more money. That's what's happening. So it was a disappointing outcome yesterday in Kansas, and it leads to our caller of the day on KCMO.
Hello? It's the Mundo in the Morning caller of the day on 95.7 FM KCMO Talk Radio.
Dennis, you're first up on KCMO. Hey, Dennis.
Hey, good morning, Pete. I won't go off like I did the other day, but I will say this. As you know, I'm a numbers guy. I bought a new truck last year. Yeah, it was a pretty nice truck. Between the sales tax I paid to the state of Kansas and the personal property tax I pay to the state of Kansas, if you put those two numbers together, divide them, I am paying the state of Kansas $478 a month to drive my new truck. Then you throw in my property tax on my house. I'm paying the state of Kansas $1,100 a month for two items that I own. State of Kansas don't own them. The bank don't own them. I own them. That's why I'm so frustrated about it, Pete.
That's an excellent way to break it down by Dennis in Bonner Springs. So he took the sales tax that he paid on his new truck. He then took the personal property tax he's paying on his new truck. And then you add that as well to the monthly property taxes that he's paying. And, it comes out to $1,100. Now, he's saying he's paying that to the state of Kansas. If he's talking about his whole property tax bill, what he's really talking about then is some of that money going to his county, to his city, and to his schools locally. But either way, that's a big nut. That doesn't obviously include sales taxes that you're paying to the state of Kansas. That does not include the income tax rate in Kansas that is higher than almost every surrounding state. I think every surrounding state actually has a lower income tax rate than Kansas. And then Kansas sits there and wonders why it's in a position that it's hemorrhaging people, that it's seen outflow migration. Over the last year, I mean, it's been happening for years, but over the last year, there's only a handful of blue states doing a worse job than Kansas at retaining its residents. And you wonder why. And there, I get it. It's not super black and white that there are reasons for it beyond just the taxes, but the taxes certainly aren't helping the cause. Taxes aren't doing any favors for Kansans around the state as they plot their next move. And we're kind of insulated from it here in Johnson County because we see a new apartment complex going up in every corner, it seems like. But when you look at the state as a whole, it's failing its residents. And the most talked about piece of legislation is what? Moving a football team 15 miles down the road that was already in the market, that you already got to more or less kind of benefit from without a single ounce and dollar at risk. And now you've got all the risk. And you're risking future sales tax monies to pay off the stadium. When we had Renee Erickson join us this morning from the education chair in Topeka and tell us that they are 3 years away from a budget deficit on the state level. I mean, this stuff, I don't mean to laugh, but it's converging at the absolute worst time. 913-408-7957 is how you join us on KCMO Talk Radio. All right. Squeezing a couple of calls here. Victor in Parkville, what's up, buddy?
I just happened to be in my car driving somewhere, and you freaking name dropped me, threw me under the bus.
I didn't throw you under the bus. I didn't throw you under the bus. I was bragging about you because you love being caller of the day. I love it.
No. I love calling your show and inputting it being part of your show. Caller of the day is a perk.
Yeah. Now, you do a great job, Victor. You do a great job, buddy. I appreciate the call.
The thing is, also what I do is I text all my friends on what's coming up on your show to inform them so that they know to tune you in when you're having very popular people, political people, and subject matters like Bill O'Reilly and Eric Schmidt and those kind of things. So I try to keep my friends informed, not just that I'm caller of the day.
All right. I love that. Thank you for being a one-man marketing machine for this show. I appreciate that. Alex, you're on KCMO. Go ahead.
Hey, Mundo, sounds like you got two marketing machines, one up north and one down south. Hey, big things are coming down the pipeline in Leavenworth County, specifically with USD 458, and I look forward to you hopefully joining us and, getting a rein on these local taxes, because at the end of the day, it's the local taxes that are hurting us a lot, not just the state.
I agree. And it's
Hey,
go
I
ahead.
got one more thing for you.
Okay.
Hey, when me and the wife are sitting here eating breakfast in the morning and Dennis from Bonner calls in, it sure hurts our ears. And then you give him caller of the day and we got to hear him again. You're wearing us out, Pete. You're wearing us out.
Okay. All right, Alex. Thanks for the opinion. If you had called in earlier, maybe you could have been caller of the day. But the caller of the day has got to come before 9 o'clock. That's the rule of the caller of the day. So if you called in at 7 and you made an excellent point, maybe you would have beat out Dennis. I happen to like how Dennis sounds, but that's just me.
Alex has already heard it from Dennis at the dinner table.
Yeah.
The issue, probably.
Yeah, that's probably it. What are we now going to be rating the looks, Rate my caller. Remember that? What was the, Mark, we were in college for that. What was it? Rate my roommate or something like that?
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Oh, no, Hot or Not.
Hot or Not,
That was one of them. Maybe there's something
And there was something else like Rate My Roommate. And
Okay.
you put up photos of your roommate on some website, and then they get a 1 through 10 on how they looked. Are we going to now start rating the sounds of the callers of the day? What's next? I'm going to have looks. What does Dennis and Bonner Springs look like?
Well, I can relate with Alex. Sometimes a person has a voice and it goes right to your inner brain, and you're like, turn that off.
Yeah, but that's not Dennis.
Well,
not to me.
To each his own.
Yeah, that's not
To
me.
each his own.
Well, as the guy that gets to decide which calls we take, it's not Dennis. Deal?
What's that? I've got lost track of the argument here.
Well, I mean, I
Or
said
the
as the
discussion.
guy, as the host who gets to decide
Yeah,
whose
right.
calls we take.
Sure.
I'm not going to listen to Alex on this. I'm going to take
Okay.
Dennis's calls because I think he's a good caller.
Absolutely.
All right?
Absolutely. I think it was TIC with Alex a little bit too, right?
No, absolutely.
We're just starting a disagreement at home for
Yeah, I just want to find a reason to argue with somebody. I mean, Tony only gave me 30 minutes.
Yeah.
He remembers that voice grounding him back in the day.
Yeah, exactly. All right, let's wrap it up with Keatsman. I want to talk to him about, the big decision that came down late last night from the big event here in Kansas City. That and more next.
You're listening to Mundo in the Morning on 95.7 FM KCMO.
Well, Keatsman had a great couple of days, and thank you to Conrad's Kitchen and Lee Summit for hosting us. Wednesday was awesome. Yesterday, I didn't make it down there. I went down to the Big 12 tournament, but Kev, I heard from the guys here that it was a great scene yesterday for the Mizzou game out at Conrad's.
You know, first of all, I can't thank you enough for coming on Wednesday, and John and Mark came both days, and it was really nice to see people come support that you work with. That was great, and our listeners loved it, and I know Mark signed a couple of autographs, and people were asking about John yesterday. And I know it's not John's favorite thing in the world to walk around and talk to people or whatever, but, man, I think he had a good time, and I just can't appreciate enough the people that I work with at KCMO. You guys are awesome. I don't know how to say this in any kind of a nice way at all. I did hundreds and hundreds of remotes over the years in sports radio where almost nobody from the staff came out and supported it. I can't believe it. A quick story. Randy Miller, radio legend, many, many years ago, we did a thing together where we switched jobs on April Fool's Day, and it was fun. He goes, you know what, we need to play golf sometime and have the grudge match next year. We'll see who wins a golf match. So we did that, and his general manager, Herndon Hasty, came out and followed us around for a few holes just to support what Randy was doing that day for something that was going to be on the air. And I'll never forget it, and I thought, who does that? Mm-hmm. Who goes out and supports the talent when they go out and do? I'm like, it was just so cool, man. I can't thank you guys enough. Well, I'm serious.
You were very humble, and you were very appreciative, and people may not, who listen to you, think that that's how you are, but that's how you are. And I remember, like, you thanked me multiple times on Wednesday, and I remember thinking to myself, well, I mean, this is, of course I'm going to be here. But, you know, it goes back to kind of what your experience was in other stations and other places. So I guess that's what it's a testament to.
To be fair, I took it as a compliment at the other place many times that Kevin's got this.
Yeah.
He doesn't need much help. He's got this.
Yeah.
So there is a compliment in that, and that's kind of been my whole life. And I thank people around me. I'm like, it's not that they take me for granted or whatever. They're like, oh, Kevin will be fine. Don't worry about Kevin. He'll be okay. He's got this. There's a compliment in there.
Yes.
But it's also nice to be supported. You know what I mean?
Well, you know, here's the other thing, too. If things went off the rails, I wasn't going to be the one to fix it. I mean, that was up to Chris Castro. I'm totally useless on that front.
Yeah, no, it was great, man. The people were so nice, and it was two completely different sets of people each day. It was just awesome.
Yeah.
Really, really great,
and the food was fantastic. So thank you to Conrad's. Absolutely. Yeah. Late last night, I woke up to the news. I'm sure you did as well. I don't know. Maybe you stayed up after the KU game ended, but Brett Yormark bails on the glass floor at the Big 12 tournament. At a time when a lot of people in politics and, you know, media and the corporate world never want to admit that they screwed up, I actually like that Brett Yormark said mid-tournament, this thing is overshadowing the games. It's overshadowing the best college basketball conference in America. We've got to get rid of this thing. They are bailing on the glass tournament tonight, or the glass floor tonight. It will be hardwood. What do you make of the move?
So I've never seen this happen in a sporting event before, where they actually changed the surface of the sport in the middle of a tournament or the playoffs or whatever. It'd be like going from artificial turf to grass.
Yeah.
You know, in the middle of something. Oh, we're going to rip it out and put grass in and play now. I've never seen anything like this. I can't say this strongly enough, and I've been saying it for years. The Big 12 tournament is an absolute fraud, and here's why. It's great that Kansas City has it. Kansas City will spend all, we complain about Kansas, what they're spending to have the Chiefs. We overspend on the Big 12 basketball tournament. We don't want it to go away. It's civic pride. That's all it is. Competitive balance and fair play in the Big 12 when it comes to men's college basketball postseason, which is a tournament berth, by the way, if you win this thing, does not exist. The Big 12 does not care about a fair tournament. How is it fair to change the surface of the floor? Okay, so that's one thing. How is it fair for Iowa State and KU to have a home court advantage every single year? How is that fair for the rest of the league? This tournament, I'm so unpopular when I say this. This tournament has to rotate. It cannot stay in Kansas City every year. It makes no sense from a competitive standpoint. Pete, when I've covered sports, what I've always done my whole life is from the fans' point of view. We have 16 fan bases in this league, and all they think of it is the Iowa State and KU Invitational. That's it. And they got to move this tournament. There's so many great cities. They could be playing in Orlando right now, Phoenix, Las Vegas, Dallas, Salt Lake City, Denver. Take your pick. It does not belong in Kansas City every year. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I understand it. I said this morning I would go 2 in Kansas City and then rotate. One thing that Kansas City has going for it is that it's equidistant as much as you can be for most teams, but I get it. KU and Iowa State are going to own the place today. They owned it yesterday. So I understand it. Would you go 2 for 1? Would you take that deal?
Let me ask you this. Would Houston fill up in Texas? Would Arizona fans pack an arena in Phoenix?
Yes.
Of course they would.
Yes.
This thing can go anywhere now. Look, what started all this was Dallas didn't support any of it.
Correct.
Because Oklahoma and Texas did not care at all. They're football schools, and they didn't care at all. But there's some really good basketball programs in this league that are not named Iowa State and Kansas.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it would be supported in some of these other cities. And I just think from the competitive balance and competitive standpoint, this is just a mistake.
What about, and one thing that I think if they do rotate it, I would try to rotate it in places where you can own the city. Wichita, Oklahoma City, Salt Lake City. I like the idea of owning a town versus being like the 7th biggest thing in Vegas. What do you think of that?
I'm good with that. Oklahoma City, I think, would be fine.
Yeah.
I think you're going to get fans from all over. I think it'd be great for Kansas. Iowa State fans would go there. Oklahoma State would obviously travel better. And some of it is you got to get a little bit lucky that where it's being played, the team is good. Like Denver wouldn't be a great draw.
Correct.
I admit that. It wouldn't. It would be a great place for fans to go on vacation. This falls on spring break a lot for a lot of people. A lot of people are traveling and can go. I think Las Vegas would be an awesome destination. If you're going to have it in a state where you don't have a team, why wouldn't you do that in Nevada? The other thing is Missouri left. Okay, so the state of Missouri is now playing this tit-for-tat thing. The Chiefs left. We're going to screw over the Chiefs. We don't want license plates. We don't want all this stuff. Well, the Big 12 didn't do that. Missouri left on their own volition, and they play the tournament in Missouri, and they get all the revenue tax dollars from it. What the hell are they thinking?
Well, I mean, it works out well. Why would Missouri not take the deal?
No, I'm not Missouri. The Big 12.
Oh, the Big 12.
What are they doing?
Yeah, you say give it to a state where they actually have a team.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
I get that. I do. Now, the one thing that I will say as well from a location perspective to what you alluded to earlier, if you go to Denver, Colorado's probably not going to be good. You're in a tough spot.
Right.
So yesterday, Tommy Lloyd, head coach of Arizona, he kind of said it in his post-game press conference. He said, listen, our fans might be waiting for us to be in San Diego next week for the first week of the tournament. They're not going to spend money to come to Kansas City. That creates a tough spot as well, whereas in Kansas City, you've got Iowa State, you've got KU fans, maybe K-State fans, who will help drive this thing no matter what happens elsewhere.
Well, if you want to turn your league over and say, look, we're going to have it in Kansas City every year because we know there's enough KU fans that will buy the tickets, that's pretty sad. When you promote yourself as a different league, what did they say? A league above? What's their slogan?
A different league.
A different league. And we're going to play on LED courts, and we're better than everybody else and all this stuff. And you say you got to be in Kansas City just because the KU fans are loyal and they're going to buy the thing up and have home games? That's just BS. All right, so if you can't figure out a way to put it in places where you don't have empty seats, because they had empty seats until KU and Iowa State have had people in the stands. The other games, nobody cares. To this point, nobody's cared about any of the other games. There's no other fans. But would there be? Would Houston fans go to Vegas? Would Arizona fans go to Vegas? I don't know. You tell me. But telling these fan bases, 14 of them basically, that it's Kansas City every year, that's a snooze fest for most of them. They're not interested. Once every 5 years maybe. But no, every year it's no, we're not Las Vegas. We're not Phoenix. We're not those places.
Kevin Keatsman, Uncanceled, is next. I'm up against it, man. Have a great weekend and a great show. Talk to you on Monday.
Thanks, buddy.
All right. Kevin Keatsman, Uncanceled on KCMO. Mark, where do you want me to go here? Oh, okay. All right. I got you. All right. Well, that's it for us. If you miss any of the show, it's all up on the podcast, and you can find it there. Apple, Spotify, subscribe, and check out everything we do each and every morning on KCMO. Keatsman Uncanceled is coming up. Have an awesome weekend. We're back Monday morning at 6.